right, good morning and welcome. Today is Friday, September 30th, 2022, and we are meeting here as the Provo City School District Board of Education for our board retreat, all-day meeting study session. And we would like to begin with a roll call. Melanie Hall, Board President.
Rebecca Nielsen, Board Vice President.
Jennifer Partridge, Board Member.
Gina Hales, Board Member.
McKay Jensen, Board Member.
Derek Anderson, Business Administrator.
All right, is there a motion to convene?
I move that we convene study session.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. We are now in our study session. I'm going to turn the time over to Derek Anderson, our Business Administrator, to talk about our audit report and CAFR presentation.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we've completed our audit for the FY 21-22 fiscal year. It ended up going really well. We're excited about the results. There was a lot that went on this year between changing of business administrator. We issued bonds at the very beginning of the school year. We issued bonds, we refunded bonds at the beginning of the school year. We started a couple extra construction projects, so there was a lot going on, and through that and the changes too that we had with how we do our fees at the school level, we are excited about the way the audit ended up landing, and so it was a lot of change that occurred in our district this year in the financial stuff, and so we were, for the way the audit to turn out, it was quite exciting to see. So I'm going to turn the time over to our auditors and let them present the audit report, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. My name is Sean Martin. I'm one of the audit managers at the accounting firm HPME. We're the firm that's been engaged to perform your annual financial audit. Just one thing to clarify, if you notice, the title of the report is now Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or abbreviated ACFR, not to be confused with the previous term, which has been determined to be offensive in certain areas. So just try to change your habits, refer to it as the ACT for now. First off, we just want to, Aaron Hickson, he's here with me today. He's the audit partner over the engagement. Just want to start off by thanking the board and for the opportunity. We appreciate our relationship that we've had with the district, and we enjoy working with Devin and Derek and their departments. With our audit, we issue a few different reports that are included. The first of which is the audit opinion over the financial statements. It's on page 15, report page 15. Okay. Well, we're gonna pull that up here in just a minute. But I'll just jump ahead and give you the spoiler. We issued a unmodified opinion, or a clean opinion, meaning that we found the district's financial statements to be fairly stated in all material respects. A couple of the other reports Aaron is going to talk about over the single audit, over your federal grants and expenditures, as well as our report over compliance with the state compliance audit guide. And then I believe Derek will present over the financial statements, and Aaron and I will be here, as well as Derek, if there's any questions that come up during that. So I'll turn the time over to Aaron to talk about the other reports.
Can we do that first? Sure, that's fine.
Okay.
Yes, as Derek said, there's been a lot of changes. Not only did you issue new bonds and refund current bonds, but there was also a change in accounting principle. well before COVID, the powers that be said we're going to change lease accounting, and they kept kicking that can down the road because of COVID, and it was finally applicable this year. And so any entity that has leases needs to do very different accounting than in the past. And so working with Devin and Derek, we came up with a population of all possible leases, and so there were some changes. And so you'll notice there was new disclosures and a change in the opening balance of your net position because of these, and it's not due to an error, it's due to a change in accounting principle. Mostly the leases that were affected were over your modular units, and so we'll go to the single audit, the federal single audit and the Utah State Audit Compliance Report. In addition to the financial audit, we are required to look at any federal funding that you have, and based on the amount that you receive and the types of grants that you receive, will determine whether it is a major program or a non-major program, and we will then select them for testing. You will notice that the two that we selected for testing were those over your COVID funds as well as nutrition services. We are required to make sure that any major grant is tested at least every third year. Even though it was an unusual time to test nutrition services, it was required to be tested this year. And so basically our procedures are very different because, as you all know, last year there was no eligibility requirements. Everyone got it. And so our focus was on making sure that you only asked for reimbursement for those meals that were actually served. And so we just wanted to make sure that the nutrition department was aware of this and had good controls in place to ensure that there wasn't double counting or even on the other end of the spectrum, a fraudulent ability to show more food that prepared than that was. And we felt very comfortable that nutrition services not only were aware of it, but it was very important to them to make sure that they had good policies and procedures in place. And so they reactivated their software and their point of sale system, and they did a lot. And I was very impressed with how important it was for them to be above board and go above and beyond. And so the opinion that we issued here is that there were no issues related to federal funding during the fiscal year ended 2022. And so if you'll go, we'll move from this to the state requirements. And one more. Sorry, again, right there. All right. So the state of Utah also asks us to look at certain requirements. And a lot of times what they ask us to look at is does not have a materiality component. It's more yes, no. So if you're supposed to do something 10,000 times and one time it didn't happen, they want us to let them know and let you know. And so do we feel like everything that we look at, if it's not happening occasionally, is a problem? No, we do not believe that. However, we are still required to report that. So you'll see the areas here in the middle of the screen: budgetary compliance, restricted taxes, fraud or risk assessment, government fees, etc. These are the areas that we were required to test this year. And almost in every area there was not an issue except for one. And we'll go to that right here, this condition related to budgetary compliance. As was noted by Derek, at the beginning of the year, when you had a lot of transition, there were some refunding bonds issued, where the 2021B general obligation bonds were issued to pay off prior debt to take advantage of better market conditions. Because of the change in business administrators and just other reasons, the debt service payment was not budgeted for, or the amendment was not made for that payoff, nor was the revenue budgeted. So it has a net zero effect. Yes, was the debt service payment not budgeted? It wasn't. I don't see this as a big problem, but we have to show that it was a violation of state law, but I want you to know that I understand why. And the revenue or the expense, neither one was budgeted. And so I just want to make sure that I stress that this isn't a huge deficiency in the internal control policies and procedures. This is just something that was inadvertently left off of the amended budget towards the end of the year. I think in everyone's mind it was supposed to be finalized, these bonds were to be finalized well before they were, but because of the change in business administrators, et cetera, it just kind of got delayed a couple months, which then caused this issue. And so you'll see here, is this the new one? If you go to scroll down to the bottom portion, this is management's response here that they concur and that it was inadvertent. And due to this change, they also have put in place procedures to ensure this does not happen again. I just think that there's a combination of factors that created this, that I don't see that combination of factors happening again. But if it does, rest assured that everything will be okay. So those are the issues that we noted, or the issue that we noted, and other factors regarding federal grants and state grants. Does anybody have any questions about that? Or the financial report?
So when I'm going through my financial report, I'll explain in detail what happened and what that means. So.
All right, I'll turn the time back over to Derek then.
All right, can you pull up the financial report, please? Thank you. Thank you. All right, we just go down to the financials. All right, perfect, thank you. So this is the statement of net positions, if you'll go up. So this is essentially the balance sheet. This is the government-wide balance sheet. So that means all funds and all sources of everything between our operation fund all the way down to our RDA fund. So this is every last little thing, and this is the government-wide financials. And then also we have in the foundation component units, okay? The big thing that you're gonna see this year is this right here. This deferral has gone from a negative to a positive. So the state retirement account this year had a really, really big change, okay? And so what happens is in last year's, there's no comparative right now, but if you look at last year's, will you scroll down to the net position? Our net position, keep going please. Our overall net position ended up swinging quite a bit because of that reserve. So if you go, we were at, I think, negative 15 million last year to a $20 million positive change in net position on just that one line item. So you can, it's a $35 million swing. So that's a huge reason why there's such a large change in that net position.
From a tiny rate change.
Bingo, and that's exactly correct. So and it's extremely volatile. So in the notes of the financials, one of the things that as auditors go through their audits and they determine how volatile something is by how much percentage change in movement. And in that, in the notes, you'll see that just by a single percentage change in the interest rate or the rate that is received has massive implications for that number. So it's always a moving target, and it is extremely volatile. So this number, or this page, do not put a lot of stock in it, mainly because of that one number. Going now. Okay, so this is, our the change in position by essentially kind of function, okay? So this is how it lays out your expenses by function, and then it also goes revenues according to those functions also, okay? And if you scroll down, it also then ties back to that number right there, that 157. Again, this is the same thing. It's that government-wide financials. It's going to have all those big, wild volatility things baked in there, okay? So if you can keep going down. Now, this one is our fund financials. This one actually is a little bit better of a representation of each of the funds and where things are at due to the accounting requirements. And so as you can see here, if you scroll down, between all of our governmental funds, we have our operations fund, and it goes through each of the things. And so this is actually a breakout of assets and liabilities by each fund along with their fund balances. And it also breaks it out between assigned, do we have it committed, where is our fund balances, and how are they all lined up, okay? And as you can see, our district, is in a big swing of this right here too, is also due to the capital projects. Because of that, the bonding that we just did for Shoreline and Wasatch, you also have, you see right there, that big $175 million number. Okay, so that's also a big reason why there was such a huge jump in our balance sheets. Okay, but don't pay a lot of stock in it, because as we go through the projects, that's all just going to get spent down. Okay, so if you go to the next tab, please. Thank you. So this is our revenues and our expenditures of each of the funds and how we spent our money and where we landed. So if you look here down at the bottom, to go to the financial position, okay, you can see there was a net change in fund balance in each of those as a negative, which means we spent more money than we received, and which was known, it was budgeted and planned for in our operations funds and those other ones. So now, this is where I'm going to point out what HPME was just describing. So if you'll scroll up, please, Devin. So what happens when you refund bonds? So when those bonds, those original bonds were refunded, the bulk of it started back prior to my start. And everything was pretty much up and done to the point I started. And all that occurred when I got here was essentially a signature. And so what that did, because it was a refunding, it's a cashless transaction. All it is it takes the bonds that we had previously at a high interest rate and says, okay, we're refunding it. We're going to take new bonds to pay off these bonds. And that's all it does. Okay, and so it's just a transaction where it just says, okay, take this money, and it's now over here, and we're paying a less interest rate. But because of that transfer from one bond to another, okay, the accounting guidance requires us to record that cashless transaction. That's on me. It was right when I started. Stephanie came in and said, here's this. We're doing new schools, and we're also issuing bonds, and during that whole transition, it was just, I ended up not telling Devin about it. So that signature occurred, and I completely forgot, oh yeah, we got to record this, because Stephanie had said the bulk of it was all taken care of. All you got to do is sign the signature. So, and I had forgotten about it. So that's on me. It's not on Devin. So, but it is a cashless transaction. It doesn't impact our financial fund balance. It doesn't impact our ratings, anything with our bonding agencies. This is kind of one of those just weird things that happen during a transition period. So as you go across, you can see, we scroll up. So it breaks out each of the, thank you, Devin, right there. It breaks out each of the categories by expenditures, from instruction and all the different supporting services. You know, your admin, your business administration, our services, the operations, and then transportation. It kind of breaks it out by category, and this is very common across all the districts. It's pretty much, it's the standard way to report it, right? It's what we have to do, and so it makes it great because you can go and compare to other entities, things like that, and kind of get a general sense of how things are going. So then you have your capital outlay, and it breaks it down. Hey, here's how we spent money capital outlay-wise, and you can see there's lots of money going out for buildings right now. We're showing how we're spending our money. The other thing you can see here too is the debt service payments. Big payments going to debt service right now due to our bonds. The other thing that I'd like to point out, will you scroll down, Devin, to just the general fund financials along with the graphs at the beginning? Sorry, that's on a different report. My apologies. So one of the things that you'll see here is in each of these categories, the bulk of all of our spending is, over 80% of it is salaries and benefits. So that's kind of a very common breakdown of districts, is very labor intensive to teach the students of our community, okay? And so that's the big driver of district costs. So, but as you see, you can see how we've spent between the original budgeted amounts, the final budgeted amounts, and what the actual amounts were. So if you'll scroll down, you'll see, back up, sorry. Bingo, there it is right there. So, and you can see right here, there's the fund balance from the beginning of the year, and then there was that decrease that we discussed, okay, earlier. So if you go to the next one, please. Yep, after the notes. So actually, since we're in the notes, we stop at the volatility. Thank you. Bingo, there it is. So here's where it's showing you how much it swings by the change in percentage. So it breaks it down of, here's the percentage of the portion of the liability. There's the proportionate share of the net pension liability down at the bottom. And then what you've also got is the covered payroll. So that covered payroll is the volatility number that they're covering. They're saying, okay, based off of this number, what would happen if we moved this percentage? And it shows you it starts swinging essentially millions of dollars really quickly. But there was one that where was it? Yeah. Thank you. That's the one I was thinking of. Bingo, that's the one. Okay, right here you can see a 1% decrease in that rate changes it from essentially 46 million to negative 14 million, right? So it's it's extremely volatile number. And then our board member, Terry McCabe. Okay, thank you. But it shows you how big of a swing it changes, okay? So if you go from 13 million to, am I doing that? 46 million off of a 1%, and versus the other way, you go to the 63 million negative. I mean, it's such a widely volatile number that's the reason why you really can't rely on that and say the fund balances have gone crazy or anything like that. It's such a volatile number that don't rely on it. Go back to the actual fund financials, okay? So now if you'll go down, please. Right. Thank you. Keep going past and bingo. So here, what you can see here is we also had a massive decrease in revenue. And the reason that occurred is because the e-school fell off, right? We were held harmless on our WPU funding, and that's the reason why there was such a huge drop off there too. So that also is a crunch that we're feeling right now, that's something that we just have to navigate, okay? But it's okay. We've planned for it. We've known about it, right? It's just that's the reason why there's such a drop there, and that is to explain that. If you'll, right? So if let's see, so will you go down farther? Keep going, please. That one right there. Thank you. So this is our capital projects fund, okay? And if you scroll down, okay, and what you'll see here is you're going to see, wait a second, we just saw in the government-wide financial statements, you talked about 100, huge number. Why is it not here? Well, the reason that's not there is because there's a new fund that has been created. Okay, the new fund, if you'll scroll to the new fund, bingo, is our municipal building authority. So that's the fund that we had to create for the debt that was just issued. So as you'll see here, it went from 0 to 115 million. And that right there, here's the way this will work, is this number, this fund stays on the balance sheets either forever if the board or future boards ever decide to use MBA debt again, this will continue to live here just as a new schedule. If the bonds are paid off and no more MBA debt is issued, once those bonds are paid off, this entire fund and assets are closed out and then transferred back over to the district overall general fund. So it's a weird thing, but that's the reason why if you look at the beginning of the financials and try to go to our capital, they don't match up because this has had why and it had to be created, okay? So if you'll scroll down, please. And this one is, so this is this is the debt transaction, or the income statement on that municipal building authority, and it's shown here. It was the money's coming in, and there wasn't anything previously. Originally, there was, because at the beginning there hadn't been any budget because there wasn't any plan at that time when the budget was issued back in June before I started. We issued bonds, new budget come on, create the whole new program, and move forward. If you go to the next one, please. So the rest are non-major governmental funds. These are all minor funds, things like the Student Activity Fund, the RDA, just all those small ancillary funds. They don't have a large impact, but they have purpose in serving the community and the kids. Okay, and so that's kind of what the foundation is. This Activity Fund, the RDA, which shows the amount of tax revenue that the district is foregoing. So this is pretty much, in the Food Child Nutrition Program. So this is pretty much a breakdown of all those small programs, the non-major programs, and how those landed. Again, they were all really great. Our child nutrition program did really well due to the fact that last year everything was, the federal government was paying everything with their ESSER funding or the COVID relief funding. And so every student was eating, and the federal government was reimbursing for us for that. So the reason why that is so much is because what they reimburse is higher than what we normally charge to the families in the community if they pay, right? So that's why there's such, and that's why it jumped so much, okay? So if you'll scroll down, and you can see right here, that's the net change in fund balance, and that was due to that, okay? The other ones, I mean, there was the $2 million transfer for the building reserve that was done, right, to try to help that due to the construction projects that we're dealing with. And so now you see that it's up to 20 million. But again, we've already got a couple projects at temp use scheduled to use up some of that, and our other two projects may end up using some of that. So, so at this point, we've gone over all the schedules for the major and non-major funds. We've kind of discussed about the volatility of how things happen and why there's such wild changes. Does the board have any questions?
I'm sure Nate would. He loves this stuff. I have a quick question about the excess money we got from the government for child nutrition. Do we have to earmark that for child nutrition? Okay.
That is correct. It cannot be used for anything else. It can only be used for child nutrition.
Derek, do you know that we think you're doing a good job? Devin already should know, right?
I am doing poorly at running this.
Devin always does a great job. So.
Always does a great job. I have no clue how much I respect and appreciate her. So.
Okay. Any other further questions about this? All right. Tell your group, everybody, that yes, they've all done a fantastic job over there. So thank you again. I know we're ahead of schedule, but breakfast is here. So we're going to take a 7-minute break so that you can grab it and come back in here and eat and then we'll start the next part.
not being a burden to us, or if not a dropout.
Yeah.
So I said, it's kind of a tough spot. So we just are gonna probably end up denying choice application and send them back to
Yeah.
Counselor Orm,
You know,
right?
be a school, I mean, they can do
Right.
independent
Okay.
study on their own and pay
that's what
for
they're
it.
calling now, independent study, with BYU independent study.
But they would have to pay for it.
Oh, you haven't
We-
got that.
we wouldn't-
You haven't got
we
that
wouldn't-
contract like we've got.
Well, yeah, I
Okay.
mean, well, we have a contract, but they just don't wanna pay for BYU independent study. They don't wanna pay for things that are not successful.
Yeah.
They go, this is successful,
Okay.
so they have a contract,
And,
but they just
and
don't.
otherwise, they're doing Polaris, like they're in the Canvas type of courses they offer. If it's not BYU independent, what's the other option?
It's
Eastshore
eShore Online,
eShore
just
Online.
eShore Online.
That's right.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's
And-
autonomous, it's
Is it
register
whatever
as
that
when you
bum-
want.
That Bumblebee, what was it, the
Buzz.
Buzz, right? The Buzz, is it
Yeah,
still
but
that?
they don't know the difference between Canvas,
Oh,
it's just
sure.
an online course, yeah.
But so they still have those online courses.
Yeah.
Someone can take through the eShore program.
Program.
Okay, so it's just odd that they were advised to just pick up, ship, and come to Provo for just online.
And the other
education.
change this year is that the previous year, they didn't charge them any fees if they were full-time. They
Oh.
charged them a $100 fee, oh my gosh, you're gonna pay
Alright,
$100,
and,
just like
yeah.
if you go to Timbuktu, you're gonna pay your fee, right?
Right, the registration fee.
Yeah, but they probably go, well, I guess this should be free, and they probably just came up on that, oh, wait, this
So
is
it costs now.
$110?
Yeah, it's just to get you signed up.
Yeah.
They just go to other options.
Yeah.
And word's out that we're pretty accommodating, and we're still free. Elon school program.
It's just a misunderstanding,
Yeah.
and then even our counselors, I mean, we can train
Well, it's shifted so much, like you said,
250 counselors.
people are not on the same page with this. And like
Yeah.
you say, I mean, I'm working with Dave Lund on most things now, and he's just trying to get up to speed on
see
things.
there's
I mean,
comments I
the
haven't
turnover
read.
they had in student services
I've
last
been
year.
getting ready for our board meeting.
Anyway, I'll just leave it
And,
at that.
yeah, and their secondary leadership team versus the secondary supervisors. I mean, I work for them and I don't understand how that works. I'm like, I do not know who my boss is, except they both
All
think
right,
that
we're
they're
gonna
my
keep
boss.
going.
I hear you.
So
Yeah.
next, I'm gonna turn the time
It's
over.
turbulent change, right?
Yeah.
No, thanks.
Are we good?
Good morning. Thanks for talking with me today on an important issue. We are talking today following up on previous discussions about library policy. So let me just jump quickly through and give you some background on this issue. Let's see, I need to turn it back on. Oh, there we go. So the background on the issue is this. We have been encouraged through the last legislative session, HB 374, to think about how we acquire and get rid of curriculum materials and library books. We currently have a policy, 4020, that addresses almost every element of what they're wanting in curriculum. In the October study session, you'll get a look at the changes there. But library books, we decided to make these two different policies. One of the reasons being the people who are talking about this talk about curriculum being a forced thing. Kids don't, if you put that math textbook in front of them, they don't have a choice. Whereas in libraries, it's very open. Students have choices. They don't have to read any specific books in the library. You should know that everyone is expecting legal challenges. And on both sides, that there are extreme groups on both ends of the spectrum who likely will be unhappy with how this happens in some districts, and they've been showing their muscles a little bit, so that is likely to come. The language used in HB 374 is sensitive, and briefly they describe that as pornographic or indecent. And there are 3 statutes they used to choose that for us. We have this October 1 deadline for policy. So everybody get your Cokes and Mountain Dews because we got to stay here till midnight if this doesn't get done. I'll buy the pizza though. As you know, we have a study session scheduled for 4 o'clock. I hope that through this conversation now, I can be making any changes that we need in the rest of the meeting so that we have a policy you're comfortable with by 4. And then just the background going back, there are 3 potential policies. First, the Utah State Board of Education gave us a policy. I shared that with you on, I believe, August 23rd. It was broader than any of the others, than the Utah School Boards Association, certainly. This Utah School Boards Association, we felt better about, so I essentially made that policy in our language and style for policy, and you can see that as draft A in our system. And then see here, I developed a policy with some of my colleagues to address some of the inherent problems that we saw in it. So draft B, and it has an accompanying procedure, 4021 P1. It is a unique one, and I'll share with you what the major differences are. At this point, you should know council is recommending B, but certainly want to follow your intent. So in determining sensitive materials, the guidance and the law have helped us understand that better. There are 3 relevant statutes when the work, and again, you'll hear it again, as a whole, it has to meet one of these criteria. So a committee reviewing the materials would have to say, and again, that fancy as a whole is going to be seen throughout this, that A, it's harmful to minors, or B, it's pornographic, containing those things, or C, it's a depiction or description of illicit sex or sexual immorality. So that's the first condition. The second condition is that all 3 prongs must be met here. And you recognize these things because you've probably seen them in other judicial contexts. So the 3, these are all and, so it has to be one of those when they're taken as a whole, and then it appeals to the prurient interest. You might say prurient means lustful. It is offensive to the prevailing community standards. And again, Sean Reyes, our Attorney General, gave us guidance on this policy where he cites that prevailing community does not necessarily mean that part of that neighborhood, that we need to think broader about community when we think about it. And then finally, this without serious value for minors. So those are the things we need to be considering. Now, as I told colleagues earlier, we don't have a policy to say we don't provide poisonous food in schools, because we just don't do that. And I sure hope we don't provide pornographic material in our libraries. But we certainly welcome this process to make sure and ensure in a way that's fair with the public to review questionable materials to make such determinations. So just some highlights between the 2 drafts you have today, draft A and draft B. So draft A is that USBA developed model policy. It's one of the big things is in both of the state-led model policies, it's a school-based process. And I'll tell you, I'll come back to that. That's my most frightening part for our schools. And it's a longer policy with no procedure, so it's putting everything in a policy. Draft B, why I and colleagues said, let's see if we could develop something different. It's modified from the USBA policy, but it becomes primarily a district-based process with board procedural appeal. So many of the districts that are taking the route here with either the state boards or the state school boards associations models are, and again, every district it's described a little differently, but essentially a principal needs to get a committee together to make a decision on a book with very clear criteria, and then that group makes a decision about that book for that school. As we look at our principals right now and the strain they have and the processes they have to go to do this, it just seemed not doable. And at the same time, we're a small enough district that if people determine that a book is not good for children, it is pornographic or indecent at Timpview, should we just allow it to stay at Provo? You know, so becoming a district-based process. The other big issue is those policies say that if the petitioner at the school level is not happy with the decision, they go through that same process with the district. I know that the people who tend to have concerns about this, if there's another level for appeal, they tend to use it. And so for all those reasons, I decided that a district-based process that has district representatives, cross-district representatives, might be more helpful. Again, that's the one that I'm recommending, but again, this is your policy. I want to put together what you want and feel good about. So draft B highlights, again, that district base for processing. I think one person at the district can manage these incoming complaints, can organize these committees, and report to the state better than having perhaps library meeting specialists at all of our schools doing that individually. Most of our library technicians in the schools are not librarians and don't have a lot of time to, as some of the model policies say, meet with the family, meet with the concerned, talk about their concerns, then go have that with the principal. So we might say streamlined and district-based. Again, I think this will be a real ease on individual schools. It ensures a better level of consistency because this is a rather complex process. If we have, I'm imagining that we have 7 district-based folk who are the chairs of these committees. I can support and train 6 or 7 people better than every one of our principals. There is the inevitability of needing a district procedure because, again, to have to replicate the exact same process from a school level to a district level begs the question of why don't you just start there? Brevity, it is shorter. I think it's easier to read. I think it's simpler in nature. It's more flexible in that the policy is mostly the law and rule, and then the procedure has more of the details. During the year, we can more easily make changes to procedures than we can policy. And so I think that gives us more flexibility as we go on. It was reviewed by the USBA attorney for legality. He felt good about it. He said it had never occurred to him to say, let's just start it at a school level. And so our next section here, I'm recommending we add, if you're looking at draft B, a couple of things. First, after the guidance from the attorney, which I hope you got that email from him, Patrick Tanner, he really talked about, he spent some time talking about how we should, I had proposed open meetings, and he said if you want people to make decisions without being pushed and bothered and badgered, he said I would guarantee anonymity. So for the petitioner and the committee members, what we would make public is a list of books that are being challenged with anticipated dates for decisions, but not the people associated with that. And then in case of a tie, we would always be allowing or creating a committee with an odd number of people, however people get sick or don't show up or whatnot. I can think of simplistic ways of doing that, or we can flip a quarter, we can say it's the chair's decision, we could do something like that, but I think we need something in that case. And this leaves us to the end. I appreciate, Jennifer sent me some good information last night, and Rebecca just talked to me about some information. Our curriculum specialist, Judy Rose, here is in the corner, and she's worked a lot on this with me as well. And she's ready to take some notes now so that I can, in the next little while, rewrite the policy to whatever you want it to be. Would any of you like to start with this will be a little difficult, so maybe I'd encourage a conversation, and then I'd ask board leadership and the superintendent at the end to summarize what parts you want us to be sure to include in a rewrite. Is this an okay process for everyone? Okay. Would anyone like to start? I know there are two here that had great ideas.
Okay,
Jennifer, take it away.
Okay.
I'll defer to you.
So first of all, I agree that, yeah, okay, that B, I'd like to see that. I think it's important to have it happen at the district level, especially with the size of our district and all the reasons that you said. So I've been looking mostly at draft B at it. I was looking at the procedure, and I'm wondering, so on line 147, it says that it's reviewing each month they're reviewing a certain number of books, and I'm just curious, is that an up to number based on the number of requests we get, or are we also comprehensively looking to look at all of our books on the shelves?
Thank you for the question. The intent in my writing this was that be a maximum.
Okay.
I think you're right that if there may be a month that there aren't any on the docket. I think that committee system might do something more in terms of selection of books if you wanted, but its intent in here, and I could clarify that, Judy, by putting a minimum number on those.
All right, thank you. Yeah, maybe a clarifying word there. So I've got other things, but we can take turns.
Oh, go ahead, just go for it. Go for all of them.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Oh, and I was curious if the forms that are referenced in the policy and procedures already exist, if they're forms that we've already had, or if those are going to be created later, or do we already have them?
We have them, I have them in a version right now that is through Google Forms. I've been working, Caleb asked me to work with Shauna Sprunger, and she's been working with the website managers on maybe a WordPress style. There's the third option. Most of our forms are not necessarily digital. You can just download them and print them. I think in this case we'll want to use it either via a digital system through the Google file, what I have set up, or through their WordPress. I'm happy to show you those if you want to look at them.
Can I think about that?
Yeah.
I've read so many policies, and not just in our district, and everybody's district. So
Yeah.
Remind me, does it have, will the people who submit it, number one, they have to be a parent of a student, correct?
Correct.
Of the school that they're petitioning through, is that correct?
Yeah, in draft B, since it's a decision for the district, they have to have a student who is enrolled in attending. We've put in as a wording.
Now that you say that, I remember that. And then in the form, I'm hoping there is a box to check or something where we ask whether the parent has read the book in its entirety before. I'm worried that people are just going to start tossing things in and if they've read it, then and there's still issues, great. But is that addressed anywhere?
It is. In the form, it does say, have you read the book in its entirety or viewed the material in its entirety? And in the Google form, there's an if-then, that if they answer no, it says, I'm sorry, you're not eligible to complete this form. Okay. The form must be, or the book must be reviewed in its entirety. We all know that we don't have police officers checking people. We did say maybe we should put them on AR quizzes. They have to pass the book with a comprehension rate of 80%. But yeah, so that's where we are right now. And I will say there's not a lot of detail. The petitioner can put in some information on why, but the Materials Review Committee kind of has to come in and look at it as a whole. So we're asking them to approach it that way. We've created a public input form too. The state's policy required a public meeting for every book review for parental input. And I thought it was, in order to preserve that confidentiality we have, that it would be better for people who have concerns to be able to add it, but digitally, that it can be given to the or the committee members to review.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good, okay. I've got a long list, I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Okay, the first is, well, these might not be in a very logical order, but how are the committee members chosen?
So I went through, I believe I still left, did I leave that it's not part of the?
It says that it's like members of the,
School
it just says
committee.
it's
Says
the
who,
committee's gonna
like,
be formed.
members of schools, it doesn't say how, it says the principals select them, correct?
So we say, in our policy, as I recall, I just started the groups, so there is, sorry, and this is a management document that I put at the end just to see what it looked like. It's not a formal part of it. So I started at different points on our school list and said, okay, the first principal comes from here, and there's additional principal from a school where one of the complaints started. And I picked a lower place on the school list. Teachers will come from here, at least 2 teachers from this school, and at least, I forget how many from other schools that are on that level. The librarian shifts from different schools. The parents, in our policy, we write that the school will ask the PTA or O and school community council for members who are willing to participate.
That's
Yeah.
on lines 40 through 44 on the procedure.
Okay. I've seen that. And then, so then is the committee changing constantly then? It'll
Yeah.
be constantly changing, okay, got it.
So if that document's still on there, if you're interested to see how the mechanics of this work, I can't remember if I took that off or not, but that's,
It's like
okay.
pages 3 and 4.
So each color is a group. They meet one month to intro the book, discuss the issue, train to how to score. They go home and read for 2 months. They get the feedback that the members, that anyone is sending in, and then we come back for another meeting and they vote on it at that meeting.
Okay. So then, this question may not matter now, but if someone is sitting on a committee, are they able to propose books to be reviewed, or is that kind of a conflict of interest type of?
They wouldn't do it in that format of that committee.
Mm-hmm.
They could certainly, on their own, go to F2 and submit a form. They wouldn't be selected for that committee. We say that, most of the policies say that the person filing the petition nor their immediate family or even their family can participate on that specific one.
Okay.
But we essentially will have lots of committees going at any given time.
Okay, that makes sense. How about when a committee decides for or against a book, will the reasoning be stated, like when the decision is made, so that people can understand why?
It's a good question. As I talked with a few people who are getting this going in other districts, many of us felt like the easiest thing to say was the committee did, because the committee only has one question. It's to the point you mentioned earlier, it's not about politicalness, it's not about religion, it's not about any of those other factors, and they have to be guided that way. So the fairest conclusion we could come to was the committee determined that there was sensitive or indecent material as defined by law.
Okay.
That seemed like the fairest because to try to not get in the game of, well, did you read this? Well, did you read this? Well, what about this? As you know, because you've read a lot of these drafts, there's a whole lot that goes into making this decision that pornography, we know from the Supreme Court on, has not been easily defined. And we're putting together the best definitions with the best scoring guide possible for our members to really focus on that content in its entirety.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'll continue. I'll keep going. On the end of the procedure, where it says within 5 days, the district committee is going to tell, and it goes through this process to get the book removed. But one of the things that I didn't see in that part is teachers. And because of one of the concerns I saw from one of the emails I received was that it's been removed from the library, but someone still found something in a classroom. So is that gonna happen through the principal? Cause that's the first person that's gonna be notified after it's taken out of libraries is principals. Are we expecting principals to give that
You
information
answer-
out to classrooms?
You answer a very interesting question. I wish Nate were here because I think he's going to be impressed with my legal knowledge, having studied this in some detail about law. It is not clear. We know two areas of books. We know curriculum, that is material that a group of people have said teaches this standards, and it's forced upon kids. We know school library materials. It's been brought up by people in the system. What about the books that teachers have in classrooms? And it does not define that right now. It's not clear. It wouldn't surprise me if it comes out that way. I think of an English teacher's classroom, if they've got class sets of books, I would put that in the curriculum column. So I think in our curriculum there is a way to petition to have curriculum materials removed, just like library. A couple of us, when we were talking about it in the state, sort of felt like, let's apply the law to what it says. This is murky, let's wait for clarification, because I do think it'll come up. That's one of the changes I think we'll see. But we didn't want to go so far as doing that right now. I do think you're right that we need to make people aware of it. And if I were a principal and I heard that message, I'd have a frank conversation with my staff saying, they don't allow it in the library. Think about why it's in your classroom. And is it because they use it as an excerpt? Is it because it was a gift from a kid? Who knows? But until we get specific categorization of those books, my preference would be to wait, but I'm happy to write it differently.
Well, so I mean, so what you're saying is right now we're just applying this to the library, and
Yeah,
not necessarily teacher classroom libraries. Okay.
And the question was even asked, and it was made clear this is for school library.
Okay.
Nate, that's my law degree. We're not going anywhere where we don't have guidance. We're not going beyond the scope of the law.
Well, that's why I asked, because I wasn't sure
Yeah.
where we're applying this. So okay. And then two more things.
Sure.
I had a couple constituents email me about a line that was in our very first draft on the August 23rd meeting that's not in anymore, that I like, that I think should be included. That says that books may not be removed for, and now I don't have it in front of me. I didn't bring it back up.
I copied it and pasted it. Yeah.
Politics or religion or opinions or things like that, and I liked that line. They also both suggested to add to that, and we can discuss if we feel like this is good or not, the experiences of marginalized communities or lived experiences of marginalized communities. So that may be something we want to consider adding.
Yeah. Where
Is
did I
that more
put
like
this?
biographies or memoirs or something kind of books?
Yeah, but I mean, it could be picture books as well, just depicting in a fictional way an experience that a certain community might have. So I think it would mostly apply, in my opinion, it would mostly apply to those, but it would apply to something as little as.
Yeah.
So it's part of the clarification. I took your words and wrote them down. I just didn't find them. But again, it's to the point of there are people who would like to remove books for lots of reasons. For extreme violence, it's anti their political views, it's anti lots of things. And this policy is very clear that it's for sensitive, i.e. pornographic and or indecent, as defined by these factors. So the scoring people are going to have to be very clear that these are not the things I'm looking for. And of course that's difficult. This is the only legal requirement and grounds we have right now. And again, if anyone doesn't have and wants to read something fascinating, Sean Reyes's guidance on this library policy is pretty enlightening on federal protections tend to outweigh state protections, and federal protections about freedom of expression and whatnot So if we went much beyond the very tight control of the law, I think we would not win a challenge. So I like that language, and I can put it in a new draft and, make changes and highlights so that you can see that language. You also go ahead.
Well, and that language too, it doesn't necessarily have to, I don't know if that's something we necessarily want in the policy, or maybe that's something more for the procedure or more for the rubric
Okay.
for the committees. But I like the clarification there.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily sure where maybe the best place for it is. If we're just trying to be very carefully stick to the law in the in the policy, maybe that's not the right place. Maybe it's more, well suited for.
It is in
procedure.
rule, as I recall, so I think it could be in both.
Okay.
And it might be good for the public to see that very specifically. I like this suggestion.
Okay. The last suggestion I received from some constituents, and we can discuss this as well too, but is if a book is removed, they'd like to have it replaced with something with the same educational intent. So books are typically chosen for a reason. I would guess librarians aren't just haphazardly picking books, right? There's reasons why they're brought into libraries in the first place.
Often though, it's publishers will go, oh, by the way, you buy this many books, we're going to send you this many award winners, and often an award-winning book is one that it gets challenged, but they just go, oh, it won the award, and it does just sort of flow
Sometimes they
into
just
the
come
library.
in. So I don't know, so I did think about that same thing.
Yeah.
Sometimes if there's not an intent behind it, do we want to replace the book? If there was no intent behind it, if there was, maybe we do want to replace it. I'm not sure how we would want to go about that, or maybe we want to discuss that more. But
I think that would go between that difference. I think adhering closer to the law, this is about libraries, and then that classroom, that's where educational intent, comes in. I mean, if it's a classroom set in the textbook, if it's a textbook, I mean, sometimes novels are a textbook. We have to have 30 of them, and so they're in the book repository. But the library is sort of, I don't know if you have to have a replacement for the library, because the library is often curated in a different way than our curriculum. And so that curriculum decision, I think, would be, we don't have very much clear guidance beyond professionalism.
Can I jump in? So I think part of the concern, at least for me, because this is one of the things on my list to talk about, is that it's hard to say we're going to exactly what McKay said, like just replace book for book. But I think the concern is nationwide, the books that are being challenged the most and being removed are from authors who are a minority of some sort, LGBTQ or authors of color. And so I think perhaps, I don't know that person's intention, but that is one of the concerns that I have, and not that this whole thing makes me lose sleep. But I think if we are going to, if it becomes clear that disproportionately we're removing books of a certain flavor, we need to replace them. I don't know if we need to go book for book, but I will have big major issues that I will bring here if we start removing books, even if it's found to be that, but we start removing books of a certain persuasion, just because the majority of people don't deal with those issues. Does that make sense? And so I don't know if that's what they were getting at. I don't know that it needs to be book for book, but I think we need to make sure that if we're taking out books that have LGBTQ content, we're replacing it with something so that something that we find that is decent, or whatever word you want to use, is available to these kids.
I think that is where that was coming from.
Would you like something like there will be an annual review by the board over the books that have been determined to be removed? Simply for you to start looking at patterns and be able to make some decisions if we want to.
Certainly, I think we should have a report of challenges and decisions.
Okay.
I shared Gina's concern, but I think that I would rather have a separate library policy as our, along with our belonging policy, is our policy that our materials will always have things that are, and if we're out of the side of that policy, I don't know if it needs to be in the challenge policy. that this, you know, these are the materials we should have, that our curriculum, you know,
Yeah.
should be reflective of our communities and reflect their stories and identities.
That is a bit in the
Yeah.
earlier selection section, that those are some of the factors we're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to put it in text any way you would like. I mean, it could be the sentiment you expressed and a statement on an annual review with board review of the book challenges may elicit additional library book purchases.
I like the idea of having a board review. I understand Gina's concerns, but I think the way we're approaching a book review right now, it's about, are there those pornographic kinds of things in it? And so the committee with that guideline cannot cancel a book just because of a certain, you know, ethnic minority or something that they don't like.
But the problem is the books that are being, and again, this is nationwide, I'm not talking specifically in Provo. I've been looking at this issue nationwide, and they aren't looking, they are targeting books with specific authors from specific backgrounds, and so therefore when they go through the process, there's more of those books being removed because, and it's because of whatever their policy is, but they are targeting authors who, does that make sense? So, and again, I know that this policy does not make everything fair and happy, and I get that. It's just, we need to be cognizant of that, and we need to do whatever we can to put in policy somewhere. Those kids need to be safe too.
Agreed, and I appreciate you bringing up that point. I think that if we gather data, we can start making decisions on data, and if we're seeing what we suspect may happen, that might refine our policy and our procedure. And
we can amend the policy.
You bet, yeah.
Amend the policy.
We can any time.
So I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
My first one is there any compensation for this extra time?
It's a great question. I believe we have to compensate our employees, maybe short of administrators, but the teachers who are going to be on these committees and the librarian specialists. So I put that in there. To me, it's extra for everyone, so I kind of like the idea of everyone, the community member, the principal, everybody gets a stipend for participating. But
especially if it's going to be all day long. I mean, it's a monthly meeting, so if they're going to be in a meeting all day long reviewing who knows how many 5 to 10 books,
it's actually,
they definitely need to be compensated for that time.
Yeah, I think where I'm trying to ask this question though is like our librarian specialists are part-time workers, and I just don't want to make, we're careful about that 29-hour work week, and how does that affect us? I don't know if Jason can talk a little bit about that, or.
Yeah, it looks like the people that we've designed to be on the committee would not fall into that category, the 29-hour group.
Except the library media specialist per school.
I apologize. We can work with that person. I think the hard part of this is that they can't receive a stipend by federal guidelines, so we could work on how that would fit into their schedule as a part of their regular assignment. The other thing that we could do, and this was mentioned by people I'm sitting with, we've got parents on there, we're not paying them, yet we're asking them to participate. So it is a little bit of a tricky thing to decide and determine how we best compensate for that. I think we can work on that further.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me because I am generally the person that recognizes we're non-exempt employees, and sometimes you work longer, and I see at the same time this could be very burdensome. Michelle, McKay, and then Jennifer.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say real fast to that point. I've talked with some other board members in other districts, and there's a desire, if we can all keep track of the amount of time and the amount of money that this is costing us, because this was state legislation with no funding behind it, it would be helpful to be able to take that back to our state legislators.
That's a great idea. I'll gather that from the committee members, the time spent and money.
So, Henry, I think we need to remember that it's not just the meeting time
It's the time that individuals must spend reviewing these
Yeah.
materials on their own.
We are asking them to read it. In fact, the meetings are quite short. The intro meeting is a half hour, the closing meeting for voting is a half hour, but that's hours and hours of reading at home. So I did not define that. I suppose we could not define it at this point, but put it into a practice, or put it into a procedure at some point. And I just look for your direction. I think minimally we have to do it for teachers, library media specialists, and I want to say parents, but I would accept your guidance happily.
So I think that I think that it's important that actually I like everything, the entire direction you've gone in brevity and moving lots of things to procedures that can change as we go along with that, and hewing very closely to the law is going to be really important, because that allows us in procedure to make flexibility as we find out, oh, these are the books that we can change procedures to go, hey, we're discriminating against a group, we can change those procedures easier, we can do these things better. I think the crux of the problem is actually the cultural change in who has authority. And on both sides of the argument, when people go, who gives you the authority to withhold these stories from my children? Who gives you authority to put these stories in front of my children? Who has that authority? And that cultural idea of authority is being challenged a lot by technology. So I don't think that I just don't want to, I want to make clear that I think that your work in the procedure, I don't really want to wordsmith or anything. I think that is great, but I think that we need to investigate, Chad, what are do we have a working group on MMS, anything? I'm just thinking, in a world of dual authentication, where I get a little message, if a parent wants to opt in, that says, if somebody comes to the desk and Alexander says, this parent says, and they get a text, and they get to opt into that, and the parent has the authority, and we don't claim the authority all the time, and we can have more things in our libraries, and a parent has the authority for their child, but we can provide for all sorts of different people.
I'm sorry.
Is there I don't think but is there a study? I know that can't be done. Is there a study group? Because as far as absenteeism, it just seems like we're going to need better communication to empower parents to account for a cultural shift over ideas of who has the authority.
Okay, so I asked Chad this morning to say, okay, what is our technology available to do it? So we reached out to Eugene Polson, who then checked with Mark. Who's Mark?
Mark Baker over at Provo High.
So he's over at Provo High, and this is what so I asked him, I said, what would happen if a parent restricts a certain book? Like, what's going to happen? And he said, it's called Destiny is the program that they use. And it says, for a student, a note can be added when they go to check out a book. This note pops up. On the note, they can write anything they like. The student is restricted from checking out books. Please email mom@gmail.com for approval of the book. And then they could hold the book for like 24 hours until they get a response back from mom or dad.
We've written a version of that into the policy. So if you'll remember, F1 is I'd like to restrict books for my own students. F2 is I want to remove them for everybody. F1 is I want to remove them for my own child. And again, they're putting in a digital form that would go to the librarian, who would put that blocker in Destiny. So when that child is scanning the book at the end to take it, that's a blocked book. And we've just formalized it here. Some schools have already done that as parents get concerned about things. There's the question of opting in and opting out. We could take that opt out and turn it into an opt in. That would make us have to review a lot of books and put them in categories, and people would not be happy with categories.
Well, I mean, I would just hope that we could be more generous in our interpretation of what should be available if we empower people to go, no, every time they check out a book, you're going to check with me. That's a discussion then with the student and their parent. Do I have to do that after I'm 14? Do I have to do that after, I'm 7? That gets to be, but it empowers a parent to have that ability. I wouldn't even categorize all the books. I mean, to go, this is what you do. It's do you trust the professionalism of sort of our community standards, our national standards? What you said, we don't have a policy about poison in school lunch because this is what we do. Well, if that isn't good enough, well then you've got to decide, and we're empowering you to make that decision for your own child. And then it's a decision, and I don't imagine that would be a majority, but if they wanted to say, then it's a hindrance.
To go along with that, because that was one of my other questions, was where it says access to library materials in the actual policy. Right now it just says that a parent can request that a certain book not be checked out by it. Can we amend that to say something that a parent can ask to opt to have every book?
Like just not be able to check out a book, right?
Yeah, just every book needs to be approved by the parent.
See, sorry, can I
That
jump in?
seems
I don't
really
think that we should have to
laborious.
approve like if a parent is that concerned about every book in the library, they need to take their own children to the public library or walk in with their children. We cannot, I think, emailing about every book.
Isn't that what we would need to know then? You can't check out a book.
Right, so is there that was gonna be my question. Is there a process where we can just say, when a kid goes to check out a book, any book, your mom says no, can you go with her to the public library?
So what we're talking about with F1 is, I want to restrict my kids from getting these books. A parent goes in, here's my name, this is this student at this school, here is the title, author, ISBN of the book I don't want them to be able to check out. And you can put up to 10 per cycle. You could put 100 books in there.
But can you just block their access to checking out a book from the library, period?
You could, and I wonder, what does that student do in the library then?
Or do
Well, they could look at them, right? But they can't check them out.
What about the ability to just notify parents? Your kid got a book today, it's this book.
Well, this
Right,
is,
like maybe.
I didn't mean to this is why I think there could be a study group. We can have the policy, but the public should know that we are interested in empowering parents in some way. We had a study group to go, you know what? We can say every time you check out this, and this will not be a burden on, if we had a system for lots of different things. It might be lots of different things. I don't want my student going to the football games anymore. Do you know what I mean? If there's a text system, once we get sort of the basic technology, we can use it for lots of different things. But if there's a study group to empower parents, then it might be, they can check out anything as long as it hasn't been challenged in the last week, and there could be a group that these are the books that got challenged, and if it's been challenged, even if it's been challenged, I want to know. But everything else, I certainly am interested in building trust in our professionals and our libraries and our community as well, because I think that's a good thing to foster. But if a parent we live in an age where parents are just concerned and afraid. So what tools do we give them? Do we just go, that's irrational, or do we say, okay, this is something you can do. We can mark your record, and it doesn't have to be, but if we can study those options so that we know that we're trying to impair, and that doesn't have to be a part of our policy right now, but to me it colors my policy, because then I am more willing to say, we're not going to review so many things. We're going to have more things. We're going to have more books in the library. We're going to have we're going to err this way because there's this other backstop for an individual parent that is really worried for whatever reason, that they get to choose.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, you bring up great points. I think minimally to this policy right now, we could include something like, you will be aware of the books your student checks out by looking here. PowerSchool, Canvas, someplace I would think we could put a list of the books currently checked out to a student, and then maximally, to the greater spirit of the issue you're talking to, have the study group to develop plans and ideas related to library books, probably related to a lot of other things, and add to that as we want to. I think there's a little bit of general wisdom in only put a policy on the things you have to put a policy on.
Yes.
And so I have an overall desire for brevity for that reason, but I hope I'm not pushing any agenda too much, because it is your policy and I want you to feel like you can support it and feel good about it.
Well, I think the way we're planning the policy right now is where we should stay for now. I'm open into looking at McKay's suggestion, but I also have concerns about that. I think we also need to empower parents to understand their power is helping their students understand as they grow and get older and have options for more choices, you know, where are our family values, what is appropriate. If I open a book and I get to a certain page and go, oh my gosh, that doesn't align with my family values, what do I do? We're not going to be able to shield our children their entire lives from some of those things. We have to empower them with what to do when they come across some of those things. So that's, I think, a conversation we need to have as a community as well about that. So.
I have something on the specific. I will diatribe maybe when we vote. But and it was brought up previously. I have large concerns, which I already mentioned, about the representation on these committees. And having the PTA/PTO choose, I served with the PTA last year for a couple, anyway. I love the PTA and they do great things. Not always representative of the community. And so I'm a little concerned that if we have a non-district or not, I don't even know, and I feel bad bringing this up because I don't really have a great answer for it, but I'm not sure if the PTA/PTO is the right place to be choosing people to be on the committees. Like, how are we going to ensure that it's actually representative? We have 40% of the kids in this district who are non-Caucasian, and I don't think they need to be in everything and everywhere. But how are we gonna get that point of view? It's an important point of view.
Yeah.
So how are we gonna make sure that happens? And if we have PTA and PTO choosing, and then we have them choosing from different schools, like, I struggle with this. And again, I feel bad throwing it out because I don't have the answer, but
Yeah.
It's a concern.
It is. Let me tell you how I got to my thinking on that and then explore it, what's better thinking. On our curriculum committee conversation, it says when we're adopting curriculum, we talk about how we bring community members into that. And what I started fearing was, it was me saying, oh, I met that mom over there, she was so nice. Oh, my brother-in-law's cousin's sister is over here and he says she's great, and I happen to know this professor. It felt a little odd, and I don't want any of the chairs of these meetings to feel like they're picking their favorites. So it's going to an alternative source. I believe I softened the language to say that the principal would go to the school community council and PTA in getting selections. And there is that statement in that it should be representative of the broader community. And I think I can share it, like you're saying, the data that we got from at least the draft October 1st report showing what you said about racial diversity. I think it does showing about financial diversity and take those things into account.
Well, we've got religious diversity and we've got the sexual stuff. And so I feel like the PTA would be doing the same. And I'm not saying, I agree with you. I don't think you should be choosing, and I don't necessarily think the committee head should be choosing. I just wanted to make it known that I have so instead we put on the PTA then gets to be the one that chooses their neighbor or their friend or whomever has been the loudest at PTA. And so, like I said, I'm throwing something out there. I don't have a...
Don't we have a diversity, equity, inclusion officer that can make up the committee?
could certainly assess them and maybe make some invitations, certainly.
Just be informed,
I-
and you can go make recommendations.
There is at least one district that just takes the big wheel, boom, and
And then,
that lucky Mr.
But-
Lyman
but-
Johnson was called to be on the committee.
yeah, but that diversity officer, I mean, he has, oh, this is what this PTA looks like, and oh, that looks like a great committee, I know them. Oh, they could use somebody from one of my family councils on that committee.
Yeah, sure.
I'll ask them.
Yeah, we could certainly put
Just
the,
to get him in the loop somehow.
yeah,
Or
maybe
that-
the
that
chair
position
could
in that loop,
consult
in the loop.
principals who consult those people and the diversity and equity to review it.
Yeah.
And
I feel like I just made the process a whole month longer.
I don't know. It's an email.
It wasn't
This
gonna be,
committee was- this
wasn't gonna
book-
be simple in the first place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it currently says principals will solicit school PTA, PTO, and school community council leadership to identify potential parent representatives. Parent representatives should reflect the community of the schools. Maybe we could at least change that to say parent representatives should reflect the diversity within the schools, or
I'm happy
Or
I'm
even
happy
in
with
the-
whatever you like.
Because if you get two schools that have high percentage of one or the other, then the
But
whole.
it's a I mean, so, remember, it's a district process, so it's supposed to reflect the district. So it's not, it's just reflecting the district. So to me, these are the committees, it's an email that goes to, you know, are people who have diversity on their mind at 8 o'clock when they show up for work every morning,
Yeah.
and they go, oh, yeah, this is a blind spot, but I think about this all the time. I look at that,
Mhm.
it's fine, or I should let somebody know.
Yeah. Perhaps I could say the committee chair will work with the equity and diversity
That again,
coordinator
that could be
to.
in the procedure.
True.
yeah, that's in the procedure.
Then, rather than policy.
Yeah, yeah. Is that
Yeah.
satisfying what some of you are hoping for?
So when we vote on this, are we voting on just the policy, or are we voting on the policy and the procedure?
We are just policy, right?
We have to have the policy by 4 o'clock. The procedure can be revisited all the time.
I'd like us to be able to say yes, because I expect on Monday there will be book challenges, and I want to be able to have forms up. Shauna's waiting with Josh, our webmaster, to get this up so that we can meet that. So I would like to have a procedure, your input on the procedure at least, but Keith, I would appreciate your guidance on how we might proceed.
Well, we take the procedure items into account, but procedure really is our management level. We bring it to the board so you know what we're doing, but we're really, I mean, I guess I say it bluntly, we're really not asking for permission on it, because this is how we are intending to implement the policy. And so the policy is really the crux of this. That's the foundation. We get that passed. The procedure, like we said earlier, will have to be adjusted over time, probably many times. And this is one of those procedures that if you're concerned enough about it, we can always update you on what those changes are. But we need the ability to just make those adjustments and then go, rather than, you know, calling another board meeting and having another in-depth discussion about that. Not meaning to in any way discount the valuable input that we've heard this morning.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
I have questions. I was waiting for everybody else to go.
Go ahead.
Is it my turn? Okay. So, on draft A, I really liked on lines 173 to 178. That the parent or guardian or whoever has to meet with the the student's school first before going to the committee level. And so first they have to meet with the librarian and then the principal, and that I thought was really good, because sometimes a parent just has a question,
Sure, sure.
right? And maybe this whole book review process is really overwhelming for them and they need help. So maybe they need someone from their school to help them guide them through this whole process, because this is new.
Right, right.
And they might just need, so maybe something like that can be added into draft B about go to your child's school first and ask questions and get how to do this. Well, not that they're gonna know because this is brand new, but
Yeah.
you know, and maybe they just have a question they need answered by the librarian and they don't need to go through this whole process.
Yeah.
So maybe we have a beginning first step before we go to the committee step, that they need to go to their kid's school. And then I had another question. If a book is being challenged, is there a way to verify that we even have the book in the school's library?
Yeah, that's part of what
Maybe
we would.
we don't even have it.
Yeah, that's what we would do internally. I mean, there is a list going around by an organization of books that they are claiming are at certain schools. I've done just a rough check, and they are. I mean, the 5 I checked are. But yes, before this process would proceed, we would make sure the book is in our system.
Okay. And then one thing I liked in draft A that I have not seen in draft B is that one individual can only challenge 3 books a year. And is that in, I didn't see where that's in draft.
It is, it's actually in the procedure of it. It says that, and that's a change I made. It said that a book may only be challenged. In A it was.
It's line 20.
Line 20?
Of the procedure.
On B.
Line 20 on B?
Yeah.
On the procedure.
On the procedure.
Yeah, 20.
Okay, yeah. All right, that was my question. I couldn't see where it was in draft B.
Terry, that raises a question though that we had in council meeting is that a good number? I mean, some people will be happy with that, some people will be unhappy with that. And we want this to reflect what the board's wishes are, so is that a viable number in the view of the board members?
Well, how many, I guess, a typical student, how many books would a typical student check out? Like if a parent were to.
Oh, I mean, 1 to 5 typically. My sense is that most of these challenges will not be coming from a parent who sees their child checked out this book. Mine is that there are lists circulating in organized groups that are saying, I believe this book is in this school and I'm going to file that complaint for it. I could be wrong, but that's my sense.
I think 3 is a reasonable number.
Yeah.
3, and both of the model policies from USBE, USBA had 3 per person, so I feel like there's some good rationale in that. The other thing is in policy A, it says that that book can't come up for review at least for 3 years. I changed it in B to 4 years because it just seems like pornography doesn't change that much in 4 years. But again, all of those dates are, I want them to be dates you're comfortable with.
I'll just say I like how Terry brought up just having parents first talk to their librarian about their concern and make sure that's happened first. Yeah.
It's a great idea. That there was a lot of formality in the 2 model policies on that, and the librarians were very concerned. Again, these are 29-hour employees who may have been a mom. They don't have necessarily expertise, and they thought, I don't want these angry parents coming at me. But I think we could put some language. Alpine has a nice statement saying
Someone
like,
at the school.
yeah, we try to solve problems at the lowest level. You know, we encourage you to meet with your child's teacher, librarian, or principal to talk about this book. I like the idea of something like that in it if you're generally
I
supportive.
I have one question on that. Is that something we want, if we're trying to stay really closely to the basic the legality of the, you know, to try and avoid litigation or whatever, is that
Yeah.
something we want to put in the procedure instead?
It does seem like we're making it a softer request, not a requirement. So, yeah, maybe going in procedure, that's our practice. We could at least have them report on the form on F2 if they are going to do it. Have you met with someone at the school about this book yet? If so, who, when? That would
Maybe that's just a
inform our data.
safer approach as far as litigation and
Yeah.
legal stuff is concerned.
And I really do think that this sort of soft negotiation can go on at first when a committee leader is identified. That might be me, it might be Judy, it might be Todd, Alex, and having the first conversation with the petitioner to, you know, I've read the form, I understand this, this, this. Is there anything you have questions about? Can I send you a copy of the policy? And again, if there's one more chance to resolve it at a lower level, I would plan to put on there, did you know you can block this for any book for any of your children specifically without blocking it for all children? And so hopefully we do have a couple informal times to try to resolve it at that level. I'm sorry, I've gone way long.
No,
This is
Terry,
this was
no, we
necessary.
needed to have this discussion.
I had one more question too.
Sure.
What's the penalty if we don't pass this policy?
I think I hear
'Cause I
helicopter
haven't heard
circling.
anything.
We have
Where-
to have it, Paul, it's state legislation.
I don't know what they would do. I have not heard of us getting in trouble for not having it in a day. I also personally feel comfortable, but you would need to feel comfortable putting in something now. You can change policy anytime. So I'd rather get something in that satisfies that requirement, and we can adjust as we go. I think actually experimenting with it a little bit, we'll learn more. I think we're gonna start hearing about lawsuits. We'll learn more from those. I think we'll get better model policies after all the districts are trying this. But I can call. I don't know, I had plans for tomorrow. I don't wanna be in jail.
I didn't know if anyone has even said anything. All we were told was October 1st deadline, right?
Yeah, we sometimes get those, and sometimes we lose funding if we don't get something in on time.
But there's no funding.
Except for general state funding, yeah. You know what, I'm willing to do it for the district. If that's what you want, I will go to the Utah County Jail and.
No, I'm interested in passing this today.
Me too.
Okay.
I don't want to
didn't
find
know.
out,
I mean,
Terry.
everybody
Yeah.
always says deadline, but
Yeah.
I haven't heard any.
The penalties, we have to sacrifice the board member who brought it up. That's the penalty.
Terry, you gonna go for us?
I think the fact that it's a locally developed policy based on state guidance, it could look any way you want it to look. It could be 3 sentences long. But I do think that there's likely that there could be down the road some type of penalty, not to mention that there could be a legal challenge from one of the groups or one of the individuals out there who's maybe watching and waiting for this to happen, who gets frustrated that they can't have challenge now. So
Yeah.
I do have another question that's
Please.
popped up in my mind. I don't expect you to have the answer to this one, Anne-Marie, because I think this is really a hard one. I think it's going to be very interesting to see district to district, even state to state, which books are removed and whether or not individual authors decide to file lawsuits over that issue. I mean, I know that the state has said that as long as individual districts are following the guidance, that you will then be protected against lawsuits on one side of this or the other. That goes for a number of different policies and laws that were passed this past legislative session. I just think it's going to get a little messier before it gets cleaner.
I agree.
Yeah, for those reasons.
Wait, that was easy. Did I just have to say I agree? You said this was
Yeah,
going to be a hard
I guess it
question.
wasn't- I guess it wasn't a question. Yeah.
It is going to be hard, but it's uncomfortable, but sometimes you got to start the race and figure out how to do it as you go along. And Patrick Tanner's review and approval gave me hope that, okay, we're in solid standing, and no one is, I don't think any of us feels to, we'll change it if we should or need to, if we can't encounter problems. And I hope it satisfies both sides, that there will be a thoughtful review if someone believes it meets that parameter of the law by a group of representative people. All right, with that, oh, yes.
Okay, two things. So one
Sure.
of them I should have said a long time ago when we were talking about it, but when we were talking about the teacher classroom libraries, I do think it's important that we let all the teachers know what books we don't feel are appropriate. If they're not appropriate on our school library shelf, then it shouldn't be appropriate on a teacher's classroom library shelf either. So,
Does
yeah.
the board want me to make that if it's can't go in the library, it can't go in the school?
Not part of the policy. Sorry, I was waiting, and I'm coming back. I think we need to stick to the policy, like we said previously, and I think we need to wait, like you said, for those, like.
I think sticking to school library right now, and then
I think the
add to
principals
it.
should maybe have a conversation, like you said, but
They
I
should at
think
least
putting it
know.
in policy, I think we should wait on that.
Okay.
But I think in the
Maybe-
procedure, we can inform the teachers so the teachers know
Yes.
what books
I think
have been removed.
absolutely
Yes.
we put a bi-monthly report, or rather a bi-weekly report of what was decided. And that we have the list available to parents, both what's on the docket with their scheduled decision date and past decisions. This book was challenged, it was retained, or it was removed.
Okay. And then my last thing, just more of a housekeeping thing on the policy. When I first look at it, it doesn't look like there's a title. Maybe the
Yeah.
first section heading is meant to be the title, but I would like just to see a clearer title for
Thank
our
you.
policy.
When you said that, or sent that to me last night, I thought, good idea. If you'll note that down, we'll make it clear on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other further questions about this? So what I perceive happening is in the business meeting, we're going to be this will be brought back to us with the changes that you've heard from us today. We will have time to make more comments based on whatever motion we make at that point. We may have to be here a little bit longer if we need to make some new changes and edits.
Okay, so I will work off of draft B and include what I've heard today.
Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to mark them as changes so you can see, or do you want me to just come with a clean document?
I'd like to see
the changes.
Okay, will do.
Highlight the changes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to take a 11-minute break, meet back here at 10:40. It's freezing?
I'm underneath it, I'm freezing.
Same, Terry, look at me. Terry, I literally have a Where did Terry go?
Oh, there she is.
Kate, we're good still? All right, we're going to continue. We're going to turn the time over to Chad Duncan, our Director of Technology, and he's going to give us a technology report and a report on Camp Big Springs.
All right, well, my presentation won't be quite as exciting as Anne Marie's, but, hopefully you'll stay awake. One thing, I don't know if you recall, as the board, we had a student come to the board meeting, I think it was in 2017, to talk about esports. There's a lot that's happened since then, and Tori's going to kind of explain kind of our road to esports. We've done a lot in this regard. There's a lot more we can do. Actually, the student that came, I think it was 2017, he graduated last year. Yep. Grant, I think was his name. Yep, he ended up being a team captain, that kind of thing. So he obviously was part of what helped us get started with esports. There were many hurdles to jump through at the time, and we did all of that. And anyway, I'm going to have Tori come up and kind of talk about esports. He's done a lot at Provo High with this. Tori also helped me at camp. So at Camp Big Springs, he was over the facilities and cooking and all that kind of stuff. So, he literally saved my bacon and cooked the bacon last year. So that's Tori for you. But he's done an amazing job with that and an amazing job with this. He's also a CTE teacher, and he's part of CAPS. So Tori Norman, if you don't know him, you're going to get to know him a little bit, and he's got a lot going. So appreciate you coming, Tori.
So it's funny, I did literally save his bacon because Chad never shows up on time for breakfast, so. All right, so Chad asked me, sorry, I left you, I have to switch hands, there we go. Chad asked me to come and talk about what we're doing at Provo High. Provo High was really kind of, I guess, our pilot to esports, and so back in 2018-19 school year, after he spoke with the board, he came and approached our principal at the time, Boyd McAfee, and Grant just said, hey, you have these new values at the school, excellence, inclusion, and integrity. I want to talk to you because I don't feel included. There's a lot of cool things that we offer here at the school, but everything I'm interested in doesn't exist, and we want to create a club. And he hit all the right buttons with Boyd. Boyd was a big fan of inclusion and felt like, yeah, we need to include these kids in a different way. And so he approached all of the teachers with computer labs and said, will you create an esports team? And I'd always thought this was a cool idea. I'm a big video gamer, and I thought, yeah, let's see what we can do. I had no idea what I was jumping into, and 5 years later, it is a rapidly growing thing. So I wanted to start by just kind of introducing you guys to what my world is. Some of you may be familiar with this. If you aren't, I guarantee your kids are. But I want to talk a little bit about what esports is. So esports is very much like traditional sports. In that we have organized leagues, rule sets, training, coaches, and teams. I'm a big fan of teams. I don't let kids compete in individual sports. I want them to learn team dynamics and learn to work together with other students. And so even in a sport like Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, where it's individually played, they still have a team that they work with, just like tennis would. The only difference is instead of us throwing a ball, we're clicking mice. But it's an online version of traditional sports. This is actually the finals for League of Legends. This was an international finals. It was done in a stadium. They're now done in arenas. And spectating is as big a thing for esports as playing. And what we've learned really quickly is even the students that don't play are watching. And our students are really interested here at the high school in what we do. So this just kind of gives you an idea of the growth of esports nationwide. This is from 2016 to 2020. The recent 2 years haven't been released yet. But in just 5 years, viewership and fans of esports as a sporting event doubled. And we picked up esports right in the middle of this, and we definitely saw that growth and that trend. Provo High School was a pioneer in esports. We're one of the first schools in the state to offer an organized esports program. And we were instrumental in helping to build the state tournaments as well. So myself, along with about 5 other esports advisors around the state, have been instrumental in creating what we consider our state tournaments and our state organization for the state of Utah. And Utah has one of the biggest esports representations nationwide right now. So we're really excited about that. And this is the last 5 years. We anticipate this doubling again in the next 5 years at least. We see exponential growth in our program and nationwide every year. Viewership for esports. Esports is actually the second highest viewed sport in the United States, shadowed only by the NFL. So we still aren't quite as popular as football, but we can beat just about anything else out. And we see that in our schools as well. 2 years ago, we decided we wanted to get more involved with the school, and we asked if we could hold our final match for our Smash tournament in one of our school assemblies. And it was amazing to see how almost every single student dropped their Chromebooks, dropped their phones, and everyone was watching. And the principal and the vice principal approached me afterwards and said that was the most engagement we've had in an assembly yet. These kids care, these kids watch, and we're definitely feeling that with our program. So this is my team. This is our Provo High team. As I thought about what makes esports special for me and why I keep doing it year after year, even in the years where I was volunteering all of my time, this is what I came up with. I believe that esports is a place where everyone has a chance and everyone has a home. I want you just to take a look at some of these students. In this group of students, we have represented every gender and every gender identity. We have every ethnic background represented by the school. We have people from every socioeconomic environment. We have students that are in special ed. We have students that are star athletes. We have students that are dancers and artists. We have everything within our group. We're probably, I would argue, we're probably the most diverse club throughout the school. And that, I believe, is because unlike many traditional sports, you don't have to be born with talent to play. You know, as much as I might want to play football, if I'm 3'7" and weigh 90 pounds, I'm probably not going to make the team, no matter how passionate I am about the sport. But it doesn't matter what gender you are. It doesn't matter how big you are. It doesn't matter anything. Esports is all about just what you're willing to put in. If you're willing to put in the time, you can make it work. And some people might say, well, yeah, but you have to be in one of those families that has enough money to own the hardware, to own the computers. But because of the funding we've been able to receive through the schools and through grants that I've been working on over the last few years, that's not the case. This kid right here goes by Faison X. He's 3 years into our team. The first 2 years he was on our team, he never even owned a Nintendo Switch. He would just come in after school and practice with our team and play with his friends, and he still made the team. He's actually very good. I still can't beat him. I'm working on that. But I was always amazed that he could beat out a lot of our other players even though he doesn't own hardware. And some of these students don't own the computers. They come in and practice with us as much as they can, and we try to keep our lab open for them. So this is really an environment where any kid from any background can find success and find a home, and we do consider ourselves a family. So what can esports do for our students? I don't know if any of you have seen this before, but I wanted to quickly play a video. This is a video that a partner put together for us of one experience that we've had. Many of you might know Deanna Coates. Deanna Coates is our director over special education at Provo High, and I got to know her son through the esports program. When her son came to me, he applied for our Overwatch team, and I told him no, because his grades were terrible. And he didn't meet the athletic qualifications. And we hold all of our students to the same athletic qualifications that we hold for all of the other sports like basketball, football, and everything else. And so I told him, you don't qualify, get your grades up and let's talk. He went back to the principal and said, if you let me on the team, I'll make a change. I want to show you what happened.
Carter had a bad attitude towards school. He had lots of failing classes. His GPA was a 1.6. I couldn't get him up to go to school. When I could get Carter here at school, then he would only stay for a couple of periods and then go home. We lived close enough that he could walk home. Because of Carter's unexcused absences, the district sent us a letter and he had to start coming to school or we would have to go to attendance court with the district. So Carter came to me one day and said, "Mom, I want to join esports." And I didn't know what that was. To me, it sounded like just another excuse to be able to play video games all day and call it a club. I found out about it when Land King came over and did an assembly for us and said that they would be able to offer scholarships for him. They'd pay for ACT and they'd pay for him to do some AP classes. In order for him to be able to join the league, he had to go talk to the principal so that he could participate in it until he got his grades up. So now all of a sudden he's got motivation. I didn't have to worry about getting him up in the morning time. He was able to get all of his grades to passing in one term, which gave him a 3.66 GPA. Carter kind of kept himself before. He had friends at school, but didn't really interact with very many people after school. All of a sudden, I saw him going and hanging out with friends. They would go play basketball, and it was the same group of kids that were on the esports team. I would be upstairs in the kitchen, and I could hear them laughing and socializing downstairs. It was a really fun trade to see in him, and all of a sudden he started to open up and became more pleasant to be around. I felt very embarrassed when Carter first joined the league. I didn't understand what it meant. Playing video games has a lot of connotations that go with it, and so it's hard for me to talk to other parents and say, "Oh, yay, my son is playing video games." He's part of a club that does that. But as I got into it and I learned and I watched the changes that came over Carter, it was amazing. All of a sudden I was like, man, I'm an esports mom. My kid is doing a great job. He really enjoys what he's doing. It's been a great thing. There are lots of people that are involved in sports, such as basketball or hockey or dance, and they do that hours and hours and hours at a time. Video games have the connotation, if you play them over and over, that it's an addiction. In my mind, there's a difference between playing video games all day long and playing esports. To me, the difference is Land King has provided structure for my son. There's a coach, there's a mentorship, there's a community where these kids are getting together and playing and having fun versus sitting alone, isolated. And as a parent, I can support that and get behind that. Because of this Land King and this esports event, he was able to sign up for a concurrent enrollment class next year, and he's going to be taking an AP class. And so for me, looking at the bigger picture, allowing Carter to play esports has been such a great thing for him, because now he's like, I'm excited to go to college. I want to take the ACT test again. I want to get some college credit while I'm in high school. And so now I have a kid that's excited about being in school and being a part of something.
So that was Carter's story. That was our first year. That was his junior year in high school. His senior year in high school, he came up to, thank you. Sorry, I forget about that. I'm used to being a teacher. I just shout really loud. So his senior year in high school, he brought his GPA from a 1.6 to a 3.5. He did graduate. He took concurrent enrollment and AP classes that year, and then went on to join the Navy. He just got out of boot camp a few months ago and is waiting for deployment, and is doing awesome. In addition to that, being part of esports improved his relationship with other students and peers, and his relationship with his family. And that's just one example. We've had many. I often get approached by administration to let us know, hey, we have a new student that's come to the school. He doesn't have friends, doesn't fit in, doesn't like to attend classes because he just doesn't belong anywhere. Can we put him in your club? And we've always been able to find room for those students. And it does give them a home. It gives them a group of people that like what they like. And what we've discovered is, and I think this wouldn't be shocking for you guys, when students have extracurricular activities that they enjoy and participate in, they feel like they're a part of the school. And it means they want to take care of the school. It means they want to attend school. And it means that they respect and appreciate the teachers, the administration, and the school itself, because they know the school supports them and they want to support the school back. And so we've had a lot of engagement and improvement with our students as we've participated in esports. So that's the big win for us, and that's the main reason why we do it. There's some other things that we enjoy about esports as well. What we've learned is because of the team dynamic, just like with any other sport, esports allows them to improve in communication skills. They have to communicate under pressure. A lot of them are on teams where, although they may be sitting right next to each other, on the maps on their screens, they're all over the map. And so they have to learn how to communicate with each other about what they're doing, what they see, and what their objectives are. And they learn how to communicate with each other under extreme pressure. They learn how to strategize. Unlike many other sports, if I join football, I have a coach that played football, is good at football, and knows what to do, and he tells me, here are the plays, go learn them and let's do them. I can't teach these kids plays. They know how to play the sport better than I do. So although I teach them how to build a team, how to create a strategy, how to work together and communicate, they're the ones that build the strategies. They're the ones that design what they're going to do. So they look at their problems, they evaluate their wins and losses, and they develop what strategies they're going to implement. They coach themselves. And there's a lot of leadership opportunities that they get through the sport that they may not get in other places. And then we do offer, we've had lots of opportunities for college exposure. In fact, end of this month, we're taking our teams to UVU to meet the UVU teams and compete on their campus. Last year, we were at the University of Utah. They got to go up there and meet the teams there and get to know some of the computer teachers while they were there. So we get them a lot of college exposure. And then we just, there's a lot of career skills that they build. This is actually our newest lab. We got a grant a couple of years ago from a computer company to provide 6 gaming PCs, high-end gaming PCs for Provo High School. When they arrived in a giant crate, and the condition was you can have the computers for free if your students build them. And they brought professionals in to teach them how to build the computers, and they built them component by component from the ground up. And it was a really cool experience for our students. So it's a lot more than just playing video games at the end of the day, and we've definitely seen a lot of growth from our students from it. So where are we at right now? This is Provo High School. Provo High School is anticipating for our upcoming season. We will be participating in 6 different sports. So these are the sports we participate in. League of Legends, Overwatch, and Rocket League are on PC. We have 12 gaming computers at Provo High School. None of those were funded by the students' fees. They were all funded either through school funds or through grants that we have been applying for over the last 4 years. One of the big things that we wanted is we wanted to make sure that our school's activities were affordable for all students. And so none of the equipment was provided out of student fees. We have 3 other sports that we play on Nintendo Switches. So we have Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is probably our biggest one, Splatoon 3, and we have added Mario Kart this year. I'm a big racing fan. We've been waiting for a racer for a long time. So we have a team that's super excited to compete in Mario Kart this year. All of those are done on 6 Nintendo Switches that are owned by the school. And those were also provided to us through grants and relationships with our leagues. So those haven't come out of the fees either. So those are the 6 games. Across those games, we're anticipating about 60 students that will be on competitive teams. They try out for those teams. And then we have another thing we've launched this year called Nintendo Club, which is a place where all students can come and play for fun. We created this specifically around our special education students. We've noticed that we have a lot of special education students that love video games. It's the one thing that they really get involved in and they enjoy. And we wanted to make sure that there was a safe space for them to come and play and have fun. And so we created Nintendo Club as a low barrier to entry where any student can come and play video games and learn the sport. And we bring all of our teams in on those days and we help them develop and build their talent so that hopefully they can work their way up to competing. Because there's no place outside of the school where they can train and learn, unlike football where you can have them since elementary school learning with coaches and preparing. We teach our own students. And those are student-led and student-taught. So in total, we're expecting about 60 to 80 students for this year's season and planning on growing from there. So that's Provo High School. We did originally have a team at Timpview. When we formed our team, we reached out to Timpview and encouraged them to form one, and they did. That was our 2018 year. In 2019, we realized we needed a place of our own. Land King has been our partner for a long time, but it became unaffordable for them to offer us their entire gaming facility for free for several hours every day. As we grew, we outgrew the ability for them to house us. And so working with Chad, we were able to acquire some PCs through CTE funding that were on loan to us from CTE. And we built a lab actually right here in the building, in the kitchen space behind us. And we were able to bring Timpview and Provo High to that facility for the year. But in order for us to acquire the grant funding that got us the new computers, the computers had to be housed at the school. That was a requirement for the grant. And so we worked with Boyd and later Jared to find a storage room that we could clean out enough space to tuck in our 12 computers. And we moved to Provo High our third year. When we did that, Timpview's program died. What we found is for an esports program to be successful, it needs three things. It needs a passionate administrator, it needs a passionate advisor, and it needs a space. And right now, Timpview lacks an advisor and it lacks a space. And we're still working with Timpview, we're hoping that we can find that and build that eventually, because I know the students want the program. And we invite them over to Provo High to play with us throughout the year at our facility, but they can't compete at a state level because a present advisor is required in order to participate in the leagues. So if they don't have an advisor that's on site with them every game, they can't play. They have asked me to take over they don't have to pile all 27 of their kids, load them in a minivan, and bring them to the stadium and handle them while they're watching the event. They can watch it from the comfort of their home. We piloted this last year with 2 of our sports. We are hoping to stream all of our sports online for our parents to watch from home. We've also seen the growth in student spectatorship. Students want to watch, so we will be streaming them, hopefully all 6 sports this season. One of our main goals is we want to make our sport as affordable as possible. Right now, our fees for our students is $100 for the entire year. That covers their leagues, that covers their jerseys. Unlike most other sports, their jerseys include their names and their gamer tags, so they get to keep those at the end of the season. And so we ask them to pay for those. But that probably makes us the most affordable sport on campus at only $100, but we want to bring it down even further. Last year it was $150, we brought it to $100. My goal is to get it to $0. My goal is to make this a sport everyone can play. And we're working right now with a partner. We just got approval through the school to do this, to pilot this program. The partner has advertisers that are interested in putting ads inside of our streams, just like they do at the professional level. And they will pay us per game to advertise. This season it's going to be Fat Cats. And the cool thing about this program is the school principal and myself as an advisor has the ability to screen all commercials and approve or disapprove any commercials that we feel like may not be appropriate for our crowd and our audience. So right now it's going to be Fat Cats for this year is our plan. So they will pay us anywhere from $30 to $130 depending on viewership per game, and then we have 6 games that play per week. And so if this program turns out the way that we hope, this program will fund the entire program and provide us computers as well as all of our league fees so that our students can play for free. And that's our main goal. So that's kind of the direction we're going this year. Another big thing that we've had is if you saw on our club photo, we only have a small handful of female athletes. And this is very much a co-ed sport. But there is a stigma, just like with football and some other things, that this is a man's sport. And it definitely is not. Some of our best players are female players. We just don't get enough female players that consider themselves competitive gamers. They consider themselves casual gamers. And so we have one of our student leaders this year is a marketing person. It's Emma. And her main task is going to be to create marketing that appeals to the female audience. And we're going to try and find ways to improve female opportunities. Our goal is to create an all-female team in one of our sports next year. And so we're working towards that. And then finally, we are expecting growth and looking to improve our space. And that's probably a 5-year plan. Right now we're 80 strong. My anticipation is over the next 5 years we will double in size. And right now, administration has asked us to cap our teams because we just don't have the room to put more computers. And that room is something that over the next 5 years is going to have to be worked out. So this is what our lab looks like right now. We are actually in a storage room / copy center. So along this wall, there's copy machines, and along this half of the room is all excess furniture and storage. Provo High just doesn't have a lot of storage space, so we had to make it work, and we have made it work. I worked with my students to kind of clear out some space and squeeze in these 2 racks of computers and Nintendo Switches, but that is about as big as we can possibly get in the space that we have. So our dream, our hope is that as Provo High grows and hopefully expands and builds on another wing or whatever happens over the next 5 years, we can work with the district and the school to find a space where we can build out a room that has sufficient power and internet connections and is built as a computer lab and not a storage closet that can house twice as many computers and twice as many switches. Our hope is 4 racks when we're finished, and with that size, that will be enough to house our growth for a long time to come. So that is kind of our future, that is our dream, that is our hope, but that's esports in Provo. Any questions?
I've got a couple. Move all my garbage. Okay. Have you had any resulting like scholarships or kids go on to play in college or anything like that so far?
Yes, so scholarships is brand new. There are colleges that offer it. The University of Utah is the biggest one. They actually offer an athletic scholarship. They're the only one that does. But there are other schools that are getting on board with that. Utah State offered one last year, and I believe it was Utah Tech, what used to be Dixie College, that offered one last year. So there's only 3 in Utah. So if I get a student that wants to go to one of those schools, then we can work with that. I've looked at several students that qualified for scholarships, but they just weren't interested in those schools. But we have had students go on and play. So my second year, we had a star Smash player. He was probably the best Smash player in the state, honestly. After he graduated, he went on to the UVU. So he's at UVU right now. He just made their varsity team. So he's playing on their varsity Smash team, and he's come back to coach our varsity team. So he's actually a volunteer coach. And that's what we're starting to see is as our students are graduating, they're going on and joining college teams, and then coming back with their college team and helping us coach ours. And he's the only reason why we actually made it to state title, because I can't coach them that well, but he does. And he's coached them now for 2 years, and he'll be coaching.
Okay, I've got one more.
Yeah.
So all of our athletic sports are governed by the UHSAA, the
Yes.
Utah High School Athletic Association.
Yes.
So I'm curious about the association or the whatever thing you're a part of. Is
Yep.
it statewide? Is it specific to high schools? Do you see it going that way in the future?
Yes. So
And then
where
let
it's
me-
at right now.
Well, let me add one more
Oh,
thing.
yeah, cool.
Also curious how you feel like in the future this might play into like Title IX, if we have some kind of like high school association for esports, like how this all is going to play out. How it'll, will it integrate like our athletic sports now, or will it be something completely different?
Our dream is, every school right now has its own opinion, and that's one of the problems we've had. No one's taken ownership of us because the districts can't decide what they want. There are several large and influential districts that really want this to be housed under CTE because CTE funds a lot of the computers and they share labs. We don't share a lab. We have a dedicated esports lab, but that's very rare. We're one of the only high schools that does. Most of them use their coding labs as an esports lab. And so CTE wants to own it because they're owning the funding for it. We've been approached by the USHAA. Did I get the right? Anyway, that one, the Athletics Association. And they did evaluate us last year, and basically what happened was some of the districts wanted it, some of the districts didn't, and basically the Athletics Association backed off and said, when you guys make up your mind, let us know. And so right now we actually don't belong to any associations. To play at a state level, we contract with nationwide leagues. So the nationwide league we're contracted with right now is Play Versus. Play Versus has more athletic association contracts nationwide than any other group. They really focus on the high school space, so we play with them. We like their rule sets. They're really strong on making sure that advisors are present and involved and that sportsmanship is maintained, and they have a really good system to ensure that. So we've had a good relationship with them. So we play in regional leagues across the western United States for some of our teams that aren't big enough to have Utah-centric leagues. In order to have a state-specific league, you have to have at least 20 teams signed up. So some of our smaller sports like Overwatch or Mario Kart, there just isn't enough teams in Utah, so we play regionally. And then for the other ones, they've built their own Utah league. So we have Utah tournaments through that, but they're not sponsored by any official association right now because there's a lot of heated debate statewide as to who should be owning this. And until the state can make up its mind, we're just kind of in limbo. My personal hope is that we become part of the Athletics Association. I feel like there's a benefit to that. But we have to get some of the bigger districts to get on board with that as well.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
a hot
gonna be
debate.
interested to see how it plays out over time.
Oh,
right?
so am I.
New and
What I've
everything
really
else
appreciated
is so
is,
regulated and governed,
yeah,
right?
what I've really appreciated is because the state has us in limbo, a lot of schools just don't belong anywhere. They have a hard time getting funding. No one wants to pay for the coaches because no one wants to claim it. They're all waiting for somebody else to pay for it. At Provo District, we've been able to identify that this is really a good thing for our students and it's a growing program. And you guys as a board, our administration at the district level and our administration at the school level has been wonderful to work with. And we are one of the only districts that has stipend coaches. And we are recognized throughout the school as an official program. We're on the same posters as the rest of the teams, and our students don't know the difference. They don't know the political mess that we're dealing with on the other side. And we've appreciated that.
I don't have a question. I can see Chad is ready to tell us about Camp Big Springs.
Yeah, I know.
So, but I just want to commend you. I think this is fantastic. I love that it's inclusive. It's great. Good job.
Thank you.
Do you stream on YouTube or Twitch? What do you?
We stream on Twitch and then move it to YouTube. So YouTube's our permanent storage because it's free, but Twitch is a better platform to stream on, and that's pretty consistent nationwide.
How do I get the video?
Haha.
It's not on PDF. Chad.
There we go. We'll send it out. I know that Spencer in our communications is really good to feed out during our competitive seasons what we're doing and how to link to us. But Provo Esports and Provo High Esports are our two channels, and you can find us there.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tori. We appreciate all your work. Also, we don't have a whole lot of time left. The other thing the board has been asking me about is the ability for parents to block on Chromebooks, so specific things at home and that kind of thing. So JP found a solution this last year. It's called Bloxy. He wanted to report on that. Tori, thanks again. JP, if you want to come up, I'll do that. He can talk to you about that.
I'll go through this real quick. The product we found, and as far as pricing was really good, and other districts are using it. It's Bloxy, and we're not only using it now for the students, but we also switched our classroom management to Bloxy. We used Securely before that, and we had some issues with that. But anyways, Bloxy's been really good to work with. They came in and trained our new teachers. They also did a training for our 3rd through 6th grade teachers who requested that at the beginning of the year. And those videos are available, and we make that available so they can go and, if anybody needs to go and get some training. There's a 30-minute and a 60-minute video. And there's also some other documents there to help them out with that. These are the type of things that Bloxy allows the teachers to do in their classrooms. You can read those for yourself. Mainly, they just can control the classroom, see what the kids are doing. There is, if there is a question on what a kid is doing, because kids are pretty sneaky, they'll switch between tabs. Teachers can actually limit the amount of tabs that the kids can have up. They can also, if the kids are sneaky and really, well, they're just really good at this. Your parents, you know what they do. After the class is over, the teachers can go and look at the analytics of the class, go to a specific student and see exactly what they were doing. And so there's no question. They can come back and say, hey, this is what you were actually doing, and now you don't have access today. So there's a lot of cool things that they can do. We don't have a whole lot of teachers using this right now, but we're hoping to get the word out more and more. So like I said, we coupled this with our parent dashboard as well. This is the type of things that the parents can do. They can set bedtimes. We already have curfews on all the Chromebooks. They're different times, and 12 o'clock might not be a good time, or might not be soon enough for a high school parent, they want to do it sooner, they can do that. They can block specific categories, gaming, YouTube, and things like that. But the important thing to note here is this is the internet, and we can't, if it's not in a category, it does not get blocked in that category. And there's games all over the place. Kids make their own games and publish those, so it's a kind of do your best effort there. They have the ability to block access and monitor things while the kids are off campus. So we have geofencing in place so that they can't come in and disrupt class. I still have parents that ask if they can do that, and we will change our view on that if that is something that's needed. The reason that happens is because they'll end up causing the kids not to be able to do part of the curriculum that day because they say nope, they can't do anything but this. So, but like I said, we're happy to move a different direction with that as well. And they can also view kind of the analytics as well and see what the kids were actually doing that day, and they get some analytics on the block pages that they're familiar with or they want to view. We had our principals send out an email to all the parents at the beginning of the year, and currently the numbers aren't great. This is kind of what I thought was going to happen, because we usually have a lot of people that complain about this, and then whenever we provide a solution, it's a little harder for them to get them to actually implement it. There's about 250 students. This isn't parents, this is students that their parents have signed up for Bloxy. And I looked in the last month, and there's about 150 who have actually logged back in over the past month to monitor and to see the analytics and make changes. So not great, but we're at least offering that to them. So Chad doesn't have my updated slides, but my bad. I should have given it to him earlier. But what we're going to plan on doing is we'll survey the teachers, see if they know about it or remember about it, because the beginning of the year is really stressful. Maybe they were thinking of other things, and we'll try to get that information to them and provide training to them. As far as parents go, it's probably a good idea to send out another email. Or we do have one more option, which I'm trying to stay away from, and that's just spam them by sending it from the actual Bloxy, and we can send it to everybody individually, and it'll go to them. I don't want to do that just because we already inundate them with other things. We have Bark that we get complaints about because they spam parents. So anyways, that is Bloxy. Do you have any questions for me? I don't know if any of you have done that with your kids, how it's working.
I was just going to recommend that we, because I think I saw it come through, I can't even remember if both the schools my kids go to or if only one school sent it out, but it was like a one-time, beginning of the year, like you said. I meant to get to it, got busy, never got to it. I think it'd be great to either, to send it out again, but maybe also have a lot of principals send a weekly email. And sometimes they have like the same kinds of, like, this is how you pay school fees. A little thing like that in their weekly email would be like, hey, just remember this is available to you. This is how you can take advantage of it.
So can I add to that real quick? A social media post. That's where all of us parents are. So if we can have a social media post that has something, we have a great PR team that can help us maybe. But a social media post because that's where they get their information. So just sorry, Jennifer.
Yeah, those are two great options there. We'll definitely do those because we want to make sure that they, not that they're getting spammed by this stuff, but make it available to those who want it. Because there's a lot of parents that already have a solution, they're doing what they can, and they don't need another solution. They figured it out. But there are those that really could use it. Any other questions?
I had the same concern, same question, same suggestions. Also meant to do it and haven't yet. So I would love a reminder from the district somehow.
Great, will do.
I never got it, or if I did, maybe I probably
Well,
did
yeah,
get it.
I don't remember getting it. I don't remember seeing anything about it at all. So, and that's not to say I didn't receive something, but I don't remember seeing anything. So reminders would be fabulous.
Possible that if it was asked by each principal, maybe not every school remembered to do that.
And that's a possibility too. Beginning of the year is a hard time.
Is this only for the Chromebooks for school?
It is for the Chromebooks. We also have the ability to do, and just for school and off campus, so parents can see if they're on vacation, the parents can access that.
But what they're
Now,
seeing only on their Chromebook, right?
Correct, yes, yeah. It does do Windows as well, but that's for teachers.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
I hope those two reports were helpful. I mean, a lot of that was geared to you guys. The first time we heard esports was to the board, and we worked really hard to try and get that program off the ground. Obviously, there's some work we need to do. As we build buildings and things like that for esports, we got to think about that. And JP, thank you for all your work with Bloxy and taking on the extra load of a lot of parent calls. I know he does a lot of that kind of thing, trying to get that functioning, so thank you with that. All right, I'm going to go up, I'm going to blast through this. Normally I'm standing between you and lunch, but apparently there's an issue with lunch getting here, so I'm not. You can't blame me this time.
Keep on going.
So thank you,
Keep
President
on
Hall.
time.
So Superintendent, I'm going to take the next 2 hours. Probably no. I'm going to still fly through
Like
this.
that's
because
news.
I'll still fly through this. Here's our different departments. I know you guys already got the slideshow earlier, so you're able to see some of these things, but here's all the different departments inside of technology. When we first started, it was just support, and it was just one little department. We've grown quite a bit in the department stuff. This school year start, from my perspective, was the best we've had. I normally get calls from principals, from administrators saying, hey, what about this, what about that? I got almost 0 calls that first day. And the one call I did yet didn't have anything to do with anything bad. It was just a suggestion that a principal made to me. So really good. Better than the call I got today about all the secondary schools being down right now. I have no idea. There's an internal firewall we think is having issues. So if I seem a little distracted, that's probably what that is. I've had several calls from principals and my guys trying to fix it. There still are no technology awards I can win. Someday I'm going to get there. Okay. Told you when I started, here's some of the technology we supported. Here's what we support now, and this list is ever growing. I mean, if you talk about just security alone, like we've ramped up, and everything that happens to go online now has a technology component, as McKay knows, and it all happens to come to us somehow.
I love that it says clocks, analog.
Yeah.
How did you inherit the analog clocks?
Because the component that connects all the analog clocks is IP based, and it actually goes out and gets internet time.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of this stuff, it's funny all the stuff we've involved. Even intercom is largely still analog, even to this day. Some of these industries are so slow to move their technology forward, make them web-based, but we're getting there. And a lot of things are coming our way. There's still a lot coming our way. There's a lot of smart devices coming out all the time. Internet of Things, solar panels, parking stalls, who knows? I don't know what's coming. Eventually all this stuff, office chairs. Electric car stalls, toilets, at some point we're going to be able to do flush counts, stuff
What
like
is
that.
Internet of Things?
It's just all little teen devices. Have you heard of Raspberry Pi? That's probably considered an Internet of Thing. There's all kinds of little gadgets that people are putting everywhere to do different things, and it's crazy. It's growing exponentially.
Buy a new refrigerator, you know what the Internet of Things is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can buy dryers
just
now
did,
that tell you when the
actually.
cycle's done and send you a text message. So I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff coming. And unfortunately for me, the stuff will just hit us, and it's lovely. We've talked about the inventory system that we have. There's a horror story at Provost. I don't know if I told you guys this before. I think I have told you this story. We had somebody parking in the parking lot at Provost. They did some surfing for some very inappropriate material with children. So we ended up having a visit from the FBI subsequent to that, and that's when, in 2002, Shane and I decided to build a system that would only allow computers that were a part of our system to connect to our network. So we did that, and then what we did is once we did that, we thought, hey, we can actually tie purchasing information to this same database so that we can create an inventory of knowing exactly how old things are and creating this system. And that's how that all came about. We named the first one the black hole, which is really bad because stuff just disappeared. We have no idea why. Literally, we put computers in the system that stopped connecting to the network, and when we go try and find them, they'd be gone out of the system. So we renamed it to the Vault later on. We are the envy of the state with this. I've been approached by UN a bunch of times and other districts and universities for our code, which we've given to them. Problem is there's so much programming that goes into the back end, doesn't do them a whole lot of good. I mean, it does, but they have to do a ton of extra programming. UVU tried to hire Bruce for me when Bruce and I went and presented this to them, because they're like, this is a cool way to do it. We want to hire him. And so they actually called him and offered him a job, and thanks to Bruce, he stayed. But that's because I had to threaten him, Anyway, so this is what it kind of looks like. This is our inventory system. And this thing connects to all kinds of systems. It connects to Alio, connects to our help desk system. It connects to all over the place, state systems. This is what we use the inventory for. you know, a lot of planning, you know, obviously with all those types of planning, replacement cycles, and that one has been huge for us to be able to look forward and say, what do we need to replace? State reporting, state's always asking us for inventory data. There's a company every 3 years that goes out and does a full-on inventory of every district. Ours is really pretty easy because we're always doing it. And then we do audits. In fact, we're about to do a CTE audit soon. Here's kind of one of the screenshots. This is how many devices we have total in the district right now. That's network devices, that's computers, that's desktops, that's iPads, that's all of it. And industry tech to device ratio, I've shared this with you before, and it's actually gotten worse since I presented this to you the last time. So this is the industry standards, about 1 tech to 200 computers. In a school district like ours, we're doing 1 tech to 1,400 devices. Melanie?
How do we compare to probably other districts?
It's all the same.
About the same
Yeah,
ratio?
it's similar. And what the problem with this is it's statewide. And I remember when they were doing the digital teaching and learning grant, which Anne Marie and others were involved with, they actually came out and said, we want you as districts to comply with this. You know, that this is a standard that you need to comply to. And we just laughed as tech directors because we're all like, well, great, I get to 10 times my staff, you know. And they're like, wait, what do you mean? And we're like, yeah, this is what we do. And this is what you're presenting. So the next time we saw the plan from the state, it was gone. They didn't even have that. So we do a lot, and our techs, as JP, he just left, but our techs are amazing. Kay, don't listen too much, your head will grow too big. Here's our work order system, and the work orders over this is just over since the last month or so. You can kind of see, start of the school year, we get a lot of work orders coming in, and we're still at about 300 work orders right now.
What would you say a work order consists of? Like, what are you getting, like, calls for? Like,
all kinds of stuff. It could be a student calling about their Chromebook, could be a parent calling about their student's Chromebook, could be a teacher calling about their machine, could be an AV problem, it could be a network problem, it could be a wireless problem. There's all kinds of stuff that are included in that. But yeah, pretty much everything, a lot of software, so software, hardware support, all that kind of stuff. And our help desk has grown a lot, and you see over the years how many work orders we get in a year, and you see COVID hit here, and you know, once COVID hit, we ended up going 1-to-1, and we ended up allowing everybody to call our help desk, and our repairs shot through the roof, because now we're sending machines home. Kids are breaking them like crazy. So you can kind of see our work orders over the year. This was last year. We're at 12,000 now. We'll probably end up about the same as last year as far as work orders go. We do a survey at the end of each work order to kind of, we ask them, you know, how we did, you know, how we responded. There's 2 questions. Consider your resolve on a scale of 1 to 5, how fast was the response? Really good, you know, 91% say that they're happy with that. We have a few that are unhappy, and we try and work through those. And when we get those, we try and resolve them and actually reach out to them and try and figure out what happened. And then considering it was resolved, did tech support fix the problem? Largely yes. There's a not sure population, so I don't know. Did we fix it? Did we not? You know, maybe it was an if. Maybe Kate fixed something and they weren't sure if it was really going to work or not. So I don't know what that means. The other thing we did in 2021 is we put out a district survey for tech. We had 672 responses. It was 83% positive. If you wanted to read a really interesting report, I could send that to you. There were 18 questions, and we had a lot of responses. Here's who responded, and you kind of see basically who responded to that. This number, interestingly, was at 92% when we did it, I don't know, 6 years or so ago. We did a survey, and we were in the 90s. This time we're in the 80s. What we attribute that to mostly is there's a lot of this is web, is their websites, their school websites, their teacher websites are struggling with that. But I also think part of this was COVID. Because of the ramp and all of our work, we ended up being a little bit slower at responding and getting to some of the issues that we had before. So we're hoping this number goes back up, but that's where we were just last year. Let's see what else I've got. Oh, here's our Chromebook repair. I know you guys love these numbers. So in FY21, we had 2,800 repairs. Last year, we had 2,600 repairs. To date, we're at 881. Last 3 years, repairs have gone through the roof, as you know, and we're now replacing like interactive panels, the touchscreen TVs. They're starting to have issues, and Kate and Chris are having to fix those. To combat this, and this has been a really neat program, if I talk to you guys about the internship with the students at the high schools. So we have 6 interns. Last year we had 4. This year we have 6, and there's 3 at each high school. Last year we had 1 at Timpview and 3 at Provo High. They actually, during their internship time, fix Chromebooks. So we train them, we hire them in the summer to come in and learn and fix Chromebooks over the summer, and then they go and do this as part of their internship class during the year, and this has saved us immeasurably. I mean, because they can fix them there at the high schools, where before we had to bring them over to our building, fix them, take them back. Now they can do it all on site, and they almost keep up with the repairs at the high schools, which is really, really good. Let's see.
Do they just have like some materials there to help fix?
Yeah,
like
yeah. In fact, we
parts?
bought them like ESD mats and the tool kits and the soldering stations and all that stuff for the kids to be able to do all of that on site. One of my techs is famous for fixing things with paper clips, and he likes to train the students how to do like interesting fixes, you know. So he trains the high school kids on how to do that. But it's been a really successful program. We really liked it. We're going to continue to do it. 6 is about all we can handle right now. Our techs at the schools are managing that when they're doing their internship time, and it's about all we can do. But it's been a neat program. It's helped us out quite a bit. So Camp Big Spring, shifting gears. This year we had 470 students come. Our theoretic maximum is about 580, so we were 100 less than maybe the 3 years ago. We had 91 scholarships turned in that paid for 91 kids to come to camp. Thank you to the foundation, everybody, for the golf tournament. That's fun. And those that golf in it. You know, there's several over here that like to golf in it. I'm no good at golf, or I would. I'd golf with you, but you wouldn't want me on your team. I did get a note from a student I wanted to show you. This is kind of unique. I've never had a note from a student thanking me for camp, but this year we had a kid who was blind, and he wrote me a note. I don't know if you can see it, but it's in Braille. So he wrote me a note saying, thank you for experiencing Camp Big Springs. I worked with him and his parents, and so did our staff, in trying to figure out ways to do it. He had the full camp experience. He stayed the night in the tents. He went to all the classes. He hiked in and out. He went on the big hike on Thursday. He did all of it, which was really cool, and it was unique, you know. I've only cried at camp for 2 reasons. This kid and my wife, I met her up there, so obviously I care about those 2 things. We're working on transfer of administration. You know, we're trying to get me out of it. You know, summer's our busiest time, so June's kind of brutal for me to be away. We're also working on a long-term agreement. I know that you guys as a board, Derek's done a lot with this and creating a long-term agreement with the city. Appreciate the work all of you are doing with that. Derek enjoyed visiting camp, I think. It's a little bit brown when he went up. When our 2 esteemed board members came up, it was a little more green and a little more wet. You know, every time those 2 show up, it rains.
It rains.
It really does, and it doesn't just like, it's not a little rain, it's always like a downpour.
And it was like hail.
Yeah. I mean, it broke through the tent at one point, started pouring in, you know, because those new tents have this Velcro, and they didn't Velcro it quite right. So, yeah. So these 2, I don't know if we're going to invite them up anymore. But anyway, any questions on camp or tech? I mean, I'm pretty much done at this point. If you guys have any questions for me.
I do.
Okay, Mel.
So a few years ago, we increased the amount of weeks that,
Uh-huh.
so that we could
Went from 3
accommodate
to
more
4.
students.
Mhm.
I guess, I know with COVID, and this has been our first year back, do you foresee that we're going to get more students as we go along?
I do. I think part of the problem with our enrollment being a little low is, one, COVID concerns were still there. So we still had people talking about COVID and COVID concerns. And then you also had, I think, some students whose brother or sister may have gone before and would have told them about it, and maybe they would have gone because of that. I think between those 2 things, that's why our numbers were low. But the year before, we filled all the way up. You know, the one time we did it before COVID, we were full. You know, so I think the 4 weeks has been awesome. But if for some reason enrollment drops enough, we can always go back.
Is 91 scholarships low, high, average? And I
It's
know
about
that average. Okay, I know the golf tournament has been doing better in recent years. Are you guys able to be a bigger recipient of the funds from that?
Yes, if we need them. So the foundation's been awesome. I've gone to them for a telescope. We've gone to them for gear. There's a lot of things like that. We're looking at some grants this year, looking to get like sleeping bags and some of the things that some of these kids are worried about. We still tell them when we go around to the schools, don't let the fact that you don't have gear or the fact that there's money involved. There's scholarships, and we'll figure out how to get you the gear. We always tell the kids that over here, but I like to actually have some. And we have some sleeping bags. I got 20 right now. Some pads and things like that. But yeah, we're working on that. Jean?
What is the fee to attend?
It was $150 this year. Yeah. Which is still quite a bit below our neighboring districts and the programs they run. They actually go for less time and charge about the same. So we feel like we're kind of in line there. But yeah, it's about $150. So pretty significant. And we really appreciate the work of the board, the work of these guys over here, for all that you do. All the people that work to get camp running. It's a lot of work. And appreciate appreciate this year too, especially, we had the maintenance department do more than they do. Stuff that we normally do, they were out there doing, rebuilding platforms and, you know, things like that. They're a little expensive this year with lumber being so high, you know, so our costs were a little bit up, you know, from that. But camp went really, really well, you know, and we're excited to do it again this next year. I want to thank the board. Thank you. I'll take that on my last slide. Thank the board, district administration, Keith and Todd, Todd, who just oversee me, Keith, who deals with some of my garbage that goes uphill, and all of the department's foundation. I have a great crew. I would argue that my crew's better than any crew in the district. Sorry, Gary. You know, I'm not close to it. And they're all awesome. But I have a really neat crew, and they all work really hard, and appreciate them. Appreciate you. So thank you for your help, Melanie.
I just have a question for you. Just with, this is always ongoing, new technology things come up every single year. What do you foresee as needs for your group?
We'll have to increase at some point. I mean, like I've already requested that we know how things are going, and you know, as far as funding and that kind of things for extra people. So I'll need more people as we go forward. Security alone is one of the biggest things that's hitting me right now. I got some help from Keith recently, so we took one of our 29-hour people, and they're going to be doing Raptor and some of these other major entrance systems that we're working on right now, because that one's going to be big and it's going to take a lot of time, you know, for people to do. Right now it's been student services. I know, you know, Doug and his department spend a lot of time, as my department, trying to get all that up and functioning. So having this person, and I appreciate Superintendent helping me with that. Yeah, we're working on it. But yeah, tech is to the point now. A lot of other departments aren't getting people applying, neither are we. You know, I had one applicant the last time. We have two positions open now, and I've only had one in a week. You know, so we're struggling to find people in tech too, which hasn't been a problem in the past, especially where we are flexible with their school schedules. So it's getting interesting.
So if you could give us also an update about, I know you're working on an attendance possibility. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or where you're at?
Go over that. So we have a vendor that's working on this. It's the same vendor that does our class choice stuff for students when they register at the Power School. So he's already in Power School. It's like his thing. It's Richard that does that. He's developing a system. They've piloted it already, and they're about to pilot with us, because we're going to be a lot bigger than the current pilot they're doing. So we're really close to actually putting this in the classrooms and starting the process, see how that's going to go.
Are we starting it in just one school, and then
Yeah,
so which school are we looking at maybe
We're
pilot?
looking at Independence first, and then we'll hit Provo High. That's our plan. Obviously, Tinty, if we get this working as we get that new wing done next year, we'll be working on getting all that done through the year. So high schools are our goal right now. Independence will be first, just because they're smaller and it's easy to get in there and get there. But so we're getting there. That's where we are. I wish I say we were done, but this is a huge thing. It's new, and there's not very many people doing this. Even the company that said they were doing it, we reached out to them and said, no, if you pay for it, we'll build it, but we're not going to build it until somebody pays for it. Right now, we'll do our own. So we thought about building our own. We also started talking to Richard, who has other districts in the U.S. looking for the same thing. So Richard agreed to pilot it with us. So we'll be at the ground level of this thing. We'll see how it goes. I know there's another district that tried it, but they turned it off after a month because it was so bad. Students were figuring out how they clock in and then just leave.
That's the key. We got to figure out how to outsmart the kids.
Well, that's the challenge. It's a very challenging project. We're doing the best we can, you know, with technology that's brand new. So, all right, any other questions?
I don't have a question, but thank you for all your hard work. Can't leave, can't retire. Sorry, you're stuck.
I got 2 years.
No, sorry. Well, I have 2 years, so yeah, that's fine.
Well, I was hoping Keith would stay as long as I would stay. I've been trying to convince him for years. I probably won't be able to leave in 2 years, so I try to convince Keith to go another 6, but it's not happening. I'm sure many of you tried the same tactic, but it hasn't worked. Anyway, thank you. Appreciate your time, and appreciate all that you guys do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, as is Tech. Tech doesn't even notice till something goes down. That's when they know we exist, and that's actually how we want it. You know, we want to be in the background. You know, hopefully everything's functioning and going well. But anyway, thanks for all you do. Appreciate the
Thank
support.
you. Thank you very much. All right, so we are now at our point of our agenda. Let me pull it up. Lunch.
I move that we adjourn the study session.
Yes, we can do that.
That's-
Okay, so
Was that a
let's-
question?
No, I am moving that we adjourn
Okay,
the
so
study
we are
session.
moving, we're out of study session. So, I was hoping that we could eat lunch during executive session, but we're still waiting for lunch.
Should I hit stop on this?
Here in 5 or 10 minutes.
Bonnie, do I need to stop and then restart for the executive session? Okay.
So I guess take a 5-10 minute break until lunch gets here, and then we'll start it from there.
And we can always start if we need
Yep.
to.
Or we can